We're so excited for today.
Yeah, this is a brand new series, going to continue forever. So
Ever.
yeah, so never going to stop ever. And
My son's just pulled up outside.
I think some of you know that I'm kind of a J.R. Tolkien fan, a little bit. So
We,
so we are massive, and my life has been. What is negative 48, Michael? Michael
Stupid
Brian.
coded.
My life has been
Stupid coded.
stupid coded. I got to do my American accent, but yeah, my life has been stupid coded with all this stuff, and it has. My entire life has been this incredible journey to discover God through J.R. Tolkien, through C.S. Lewis, through Jesus Christ, through going within, meditation. It's incredible. My entire life just has made perfect sense in the last 2 years, and I can sort of see how everything that has God has put in before me has prepared me for all of this, and has led me to Colleen, and Colleen to me, and us to all of you, and us to this sacred movement, and the great awakening that's occurring. And you know, when you look at Lewis and Tolkien, they could just retitle all of their books to the Great Awakening, because that's what the Hobbit is. And you know, for Tolkien, it all started with the Hobbit. Hobbit is so misunderstood by most Tolkien fans. They see it as a children's story, and it's a great story. Everyone will agree to that. But it's a pretty fairly harmless children's story, and it isn't. It is an alchemical masterpiece. It is the one story, and it's so beautiful how Tolkien did this. Thorin Oakenshield has to return to become the king. So it's the return of the king. So then the story plays out with Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings, but it originates with Thorin Oakenshield in the Hobbit, and he has to retrieve the Arkenstone. so this is the stone in the Ark of the Covenant. And where is the Ark of the Covenant? There's your temples. This is Solomon's temple, and the Ark of the Covenant is right here, which is the third ventricle of your brain. And so the Arkenstone, it's the pineal gland, and you have to. Where do you have to get it back from? You have to get the Arkenstone back from the dragon, who's hoarding your treasure. And that is the perfect allegory. It's the perfect. We're going to introduce everybody here. We're going to introduce the show in a sec, but I just wanted to start with that because it's the perfect allegory for everything. It's the perfect allegory for these Canaanite monsters that have destroyed this precious creation. And it is the reason why we've taken them down. And it is the reason why the book of Revelation was written. It's all of the reason. The dragon is our left brain. Take no thought for your life. So when people tell you that J.R. Tolkien was a devout Catholic, that's what you say to that. J.R. Tolkien was a profound Christian. That's what J.R. Tolkien was. C.S. Lewis, who to get away from this Catholicism thing, called himself an atheist. But Lewis is one of the most profound Christians that has ever existed. And Tolkien wrote famously in the introduction to The Lord of the Rings, it's not an allegory. I don't like allegory. From as soon as I was old enough to detect its presence, I've always disdained allegories. The Lord of the Rings is the best allegory ever. It's another Bible. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia are another Bible for creation. So you better believe that Tolkien created the perfect allegory, but why would he say that? Why would Lewis call himself an atheist? Why? Because
so that's what we're here to discuss.
exactly.
Shall we introduce
These men
beautiful
were
people?
trying to survive while creating these masterful creations, and they have completely not only influenced but shaped my entire existence. So I owe everything to these men, and it is such a pleasure and a joy to have this show. So hosting today is the incredible, back in America, by popular demand. The Americans were screaming for Justin to come back across the border.
3-day journey there and back again.
Yeah, and the road dogs had to sniff Justin down. They got
terrible. His oranges. They got his.
had the contraband of oranges and grapefruits. Can't have that.
So it's amazing to have Justin hosting and Justin here. Thank you so much, my friend. Now, our two very, very special guests are two Tolkien enthusiasts.
Well, they're actually the roundtable panelists. They're not guests. They're going to be.
That's right. This is our family. This is the show. This is our panel moving forward. Eugene will be able to jump in as well whenever he wants. So this is so exciting. So Sandra, who you're seeing on the screen as Blue Snowbell, goes by many names, but we use Sandra, and Sandra is absolutely amazing. She's such a genius. She knows so much on so many different levels and is so passionate
and one of the most
Tolkien.
Humble people we've ever met.
That's right, and selfless, has supported us, helped our insane creation of the Animal Rescue Sanctuary here from
Since
day
the
one.
beginning.
Yeah. And is always kindly offering assistance, help all the time, knowing how hard we work and our workload here.
Works.
Yeah, and that's right. And Sandra has it all at her end as well. So Sandra, thank you. And then really quickly, we'll just quickly introduce Aaron Dunbar, or Aaron Gorn, which I absolutely love, and. Aaron is, besides, a family man, he is an author working on an incredible book. I'm so excited. Colleen's been reading what's been sent. It's brilliantly written about Tolkien, the inspiration for Tolkien's creation of Middle-earth. It's fantastic. And Aaron is also a tarot card reader, but really a tarot card healer. And we're going to be able to get into some of that as well. So it's absolutely fabulous. So to Sandra and Aaron, welcome to the show, and we'll pass it over to Sandra first to say a few words, and then over to Aaron. Welcome to the show.
I'm not very good at this kind of thing. I mean, you know yourself that I've been hiding away, lurking in the background for a few years now. just sending bits of pieces of info over every now and then, and I'm quite a private person. I think it's time for everybody like me to stand up and be counted. Yeah.
And I just want to acknowledge how how courageous that is to take that first step, that leap of faith, and to truly exercise that throat chakra and speak passionately, because that's what we have to do. We have to cross the fiction, clear the throat, sing praises to God, and what better way to do it than to step onto a platform like this and speak the goodly godly truth that Tolkien wrote in his books. So yeah, thank you for being here, Sandra. Thank you for taking that leap and joining us. We really appreciate it.
So beautifully said, Justin.
Yeah, Aaron, what have you got for us today?
What have I got for you? Just first of all, thank you for letting me be here. Wow, what an honor to come on and speak about Tolkien. Like Charlie, I believe, discovered Tolkien around 12. I was gifted The Lord of the Rings at 12 and read it every year up until maybe 21, 22. It was my holiday away from the world. I'd read The Lord of the Rings. So yeah, it's truly changed my life, and it's probably in the last 2 years, I think, that I've realized what Tolkien meant when he consistently said it's not fiction. When people commended him on such a beautiful piece of fiction, he would say, I don't know what you're talking about, it's not fiction. and now we know we know why it's real. We are the fellowship. So again, thank you for everything you guys have done.
Oh, you know, Charlie was reading the book when I first met him. He was reading the book, and he kept reading the book, and every year he kept reading the book, and I'd be on to like my 10th or some different book, and I just thought, well, it's really odd, you know, he keeps reading Lord of the Rings, and every year he said he's read it since he was 12, and I'm just like, holy catfish. I thought, well, that's really cool in a way, you know. And then I was like, I started reading it myself, and then I was always in love with the movies. And then it just dawned on me one day, and I just said, you know, this is real. Like, this is not an allegory. This is real. And then he explained to me that Tolkien said this was an allegory, and he laughed and he said, yeah, it totally is. And I'm like, no, like, this is real. This really exists. He created something, but it actually exists. Like, it really does. And
well, yeah, exactly. What Colleen actually said was, we both knew that it wasn't an allegory, and that Tolkien had to say that to be able to write what he wrote. But what Colleen said is that it's encoding everything that's going on in the world. He's writing about the world, so
he knows.
So at a certain year of reading it. Now remember, just like Aaron, I was gifted from my godparents. My godparents, who were wholesalers of books in North Vancouver. Wonderful. And it was incredible because they gave me for my 12th birthday a hardback edition of The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, The Silmarillion, the illustrated edition of The Lord of the Rings, Sir Humphrey Carter's biography of Tolkien, and also like an encyclopedia of Tolkien's words. And it was just the most incredible thing ever, and I couldn't believe it. And they were just saying, no, we did this because just you'll see. You're meant to have these books. Whatever they saw in me, wow. they just said, you know, meant to have these books. And they encouraged me to read Lewis, which then I got a hardback edition on my own. And then they've just been my life. So from I was born in '63, so at the age of 12. That put it to 75, and from 1975 onwards, I've read The Lord of the Rings until 2021, this year. I read The Lord of the Rings once every single year, just like Christopher Lee and so many others. And so that's 45. So in the year 2020, when President Trump came to the rescue of this godly earth, I had just finished reading Lord of the Rings for the 45th year in a row. Wow. Cyrus, 45. And it was about at the 39th year, the 39th reading through Colleen, that I went back in, and then it was just like, holy shit. Everything that is happening in this world is encoded. But it was more than that. It was all of the knowledge that I gained about the metaphysical world, and about the one story, and about this journey that we have to do inside of us. And then you just go, oh my God, it is an alchemical masterpiece. And then you go back into Lewis and you just go, oh my God. It's the two of them wrote the two most deeply encoded, beautiful alchemical masterpieces. So this is the silver rising to the gold in the Tiffany blue skies. And that's why, again, Thor and Oak and Shield, Return of the King, Aragorn, Return of the King, because it's the one story. They're writing the one story of creation. And it's stunning. And, you know, you have to look at this and just smile, because the biggest selling book from 1950 onwards is the Bible. The second biggest selling book from 1950 onwards is The Lord of the Rings. And they're the same. They're different, but they're the same. And they're the two biggest. And so that gives me so much hope moving forward, that all those that are truly lost behind layers of masks and believing in you know, injections and modern, medical, modern medicine and all this other bullshit, are going to find themselves. They're going to find themselves because something inside of all of us elevated these books by Tolkien and Lewis.
God's lore, legend, and magic is just going to permeate through everything.
Yeah.
But we're all in there, aren't we? We're all in the story, and sometimes I don't mean just as individual characters, because we overlap. We're all Aragorn on different levels. We're all Frodo on different levels. We're all but like I think Gollum is our ego.
It is.
Our shadow.
Pardon?
It's our shadow. It's the unresolved, repressed, negative energy that we aren't willing to face.
He's the one that comes and jumps on us from behind and pulls us down and keeps trying to pull us down when we're struggling. And he's our like a little brother pest, isn't he? That won't leave us alone and keeps trying to just drag us back down into earthly things, and when we're trying to climb Mount Doom.
Exactly. And Sandra, in saying what you just said, which is entirely true, isn't it incredible that none of the eucatastrophe would have occurred had Gollum not done what he had done? So that the ultimate encoding is what Colleen has always brought forth. She's been the best teacher of this, of any of us out there talking about, which is that you don't kill the dragon, you don't slay the dragon. You can't, because you wake up the next morning and the dragon's back again. So the slaying of the dragon is actually a bit of a misnomer, and I use it far too often. It is the reinterpretation of who we are, and it is the unification of two realms. It is bringing Gollum back into the fold. It's not letting Gollum run the show. One piece of the puzzle, 10% of the puzzle, should never run the show. But that's exactly what's been happening, because all of these monsters that run this world, like the entire royal family and the history of British politicians, and the royal class of Britain is just filled with golems. They're just filled with monsters of the left brain, carnal monsters of the left brain. But Tolkien wrote this, that without Gollum, there was no eucatastrophe. There was no miracle. And so the idea is to bring that left brain into unison, but through the right brain. And that Frodo is the right brain, Gollum is the left brain, and Sam is the work. Sam is the worker. Sam is the gardener. Sam is the tender. Sam is Jesus Christ. Sam is Aragorn is Jesus Christ. But Sam in his own way is Jesus Christ, because he is the shepherd of the garden that has to balance the tree of knowledge of good and evil, Gollum, and the tree of life, which is Frodo. And the two trees are from the same sapling. And that's why
every time you revisit the story, you always see something new, don't you? You always see something new. And at the moment, it hits you like a train, doesn't it? It's so, just everything that's happening at the moment is in there, and it's so obvious, and it becomes more and more obvious. But at the moment, I don't see how anybody could look at that story and not see what's going on, what's happening now. And
I think the tale of what a hobbit represents is really useful in seeing that. So the hobbits are naive, peaceful, innocent, and I think that kind of represents most of humanity at the moment. They're innocent, but they're also naive and ignorant of what evil is outside of the Shire. Now, it takes someone like Frodo and Bilbo to actually go on that hero's journey. But isn't it funny how Gollum appears more and more and more the closer Frodo gets to taking that ring of power and destroying it? Because the greater light we shine on the darkness, the more our own shadow is revealed. And in alchemy, it's calcinatio. It's the burning up away of everything false, and that literally happens to Gollum in the end. It's he and Frodo become one again, is how I see it. So Gollum is the repressed aspects of all hobbits, the lust for power, the violence, because hobbits are peaceful. But it takes someone like Frodo to actually go on this quest and destroy the ring. And then in that, he unites himself again and becomes whole, because he takes what's useful out of that darkness, which was the eucatastrophe. And
he still retains his innocence, though, in a way. He still retains much of that original innocence that he had.
Yeah.
And I know everybody interprets it differently, and but I think of Saruman as being the public face of the Cabal, and maybe Sauron as the hidden controllers. Gandalf maybe representing the Q side of things, because he's the one that's, you know, he battles with the Balrog and dies apparently, but then so he's representing the god, you know, those who've been galted. Wormtongue, let's see, he's Denethor, he's and Theoden, he is the people who wake up along the journey, the ones maybe who've had the jab and are now regretting it or whatever. Denethor's the one who never gets it, no matter how much evidence you put right in front of his eyes, he still won't accept. He's still fighting against
he's been hypnotized by the Palantir, the dark visions of the energy, which is social media. You know, you've got all these black pill merchants that want to feed you fear and despair, thinking that they know everything because they have the Palantir here every day, and they're being fed despair. And
see, now I think the Charlie freaks of the world are represented by Legolas and Gimli, and because well, sorry, but because they're faithful and they're honest and they're true, they're trustworthy. You can rely on them to tell the truth at all times. They're steadfast. They won't let you down. They're there with you from the start to the finish. I think who did I think that was you've got the orcs as well, haven't you? That, you know, orky talky at the end of the day. But what I was thinking was, I thought Charlie Ward, the Sasha Stones of the world, they are my Sauron. Well, Sauron, I personally think he's the hidden face of.
Oh no, yeah, the mouth of Sauron is is what I said.
Yeah, I can't remember who I did that. I'm so tired, but and Frodo and Sam, the relationship between Frodo and Sam, they're the ring bearers. I mean, Frodo is, but Sam's with him all the way, isn't he? And no man's an island, and he can't get up that mountain without Sam. He can't.
Well, and when Frodo casts the ring into the fire, he lets go of his one finger, 1 out of 10 fingers, paying that 10% tithing, that dime, letting go of that and paying that fee. You know, he has to. We have to.
And what does Gollum? When Gollum loses the ring, his entire focus is on that 10% rather than what's being gifted, which is the 90%. He can't tithe that, so he represents what happens when, you know, you go fully to the left brain, to the mind worm.
That's a brilliant point. Everything that Sandra was saying, Sandra, I agree with you 100%, and that is absolutely brilliant. And Aaron, what you just said is so important. That is so brilliant. Frodo had been dragged down, and there's no judgment here at all. Understandably so. Frodo was brought down to the core of his essence. He was dragged from upon high down to the root Muladhara chakra. So at the end, he looked like, he sounded like, he acted like Gollum. The last burst that got Frodo to the cracks of doom and in was only after Gollum attempted one more feeble attempt at getting the ring, and it inflamed Frodo to be able to get to the cracks and then declare the ring for his own, because he had just fallen into that entirely left brain. Which is why the closer they got to Mount Doom, Gollum plays such a huge role. And it was Sam. After everything happened and Frodo just wanted to give up. Now in the movie, Peter Jackson encodes this beautifully so by Frodo going over the cliff with Gollum and then Frodo hanging on and looking back at Sam going, just let me go. Just let me go. And oh, always brings tears to my eyes, but Sam says, don't you let go. Don't you dare let go. And so Frodo puts that hand up, and notice that it's the hand with only 4 fingers on it. And
everybody that's been coming along this journey with us, and when every so often everybody hits a patch of despair, which is the real sin, isn't it? Despair is the sin of and then what we have to do is say, well, if you can't make it up yourself, I'll carry you. And I think that's what we have been doing. And I think people like Faramir, Boromir, Eomer, I think they are the good-hearted, well-intended people who've been trying to wake people up, but have also been hit by doubt and fears and mistrusting and being wary. And I mean, Eomer himself, he says to Legolas and Aragorn, and he says Theoden does no longer recognise who is his friend or his foe. And we've all been there as well. We've all thought, well, hang on a minute, who do I trust? Who do I don't? Who can I trust? Who can't I trust? And then it's Wormtongue, I think, is the Charlie Woods and the Sasha Stones of this world, because I don't think necessarily they started off as evil, but I mean, they come to a sticky end. I think they'll come to a sticky end, but as does Saruman. They'll come to
the opportunity.
Well.
As Charlie and Colleen and Justin have so often said, the opportunity was given to Charlie Ward and others like him to, come back to the good side, and the same was given to Grimmer. It was he that still chose to remain faithful to, well, a deceiver, Saruman, basically.
And Aragorn himself, because we're not just naive hobbits, we're Aragorn as well, because we're hiding our own sovereignty for a long, long time until the end when we accept our sovereignty. But we accept it with humility, because we bow down to the hobbits, because we're not the king as popularly thought of as the king. We are a king. We're all kings. We're all sovereign, but we have to have that humility, because if we don't, then it would just start all over again.
Again, just everywhere is just pure brilliance. This is incredible. And it is so true. And remember, Gandalf is G for God, G for a real Freemason, the real Freemasons, G for the real Knights Templar, G for the Gnostics. You see how this all fit? G for the Essenes. Gandalf represents the truth, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
And remember,
Gandalf,
G is 7,
which is God intervention, which is, the entire story is all about God intervention. But God intervention doesn't come if you despair. And that's why Tolkien famously wrote that I believe that the only true sin in this world is despair, because you're saying that you absolutely know what's going to happen tomorrow and you don't. And when you shut the door on hope, so all through 2020, when we came along, Colleen and I really had no interest in diving into great detail with all the Q stuff. We did because it just seemed like somebody needed to bring the truth. So we ended up doing, the takedown of the Cabal from A to Z and a host of shows that came out of that. But it wasn't our purpose. We just wanted to teach alchemy. We just wanted to teach this one story. We wanted to teach etymology and gematria of this beautiful language. And we were pulled in. We were pulled in because the Anons, who are really great people, weren't getting the alchemical side to this, and no one in the truth community, like a lot of names were mentioned in the truth community, were rallying around this. And then the ones that were only doing it for money. And then they were saying that they're on the inside, when one of the first comms from Q is that there are no outside comms. This is a tight knit group, family, military, 70-30, 70% military, 30% civilian, and there are no outside comms. But 10 million people believe that Charlie Ward is the Donald Trump's secret chief of staff, and that he, Robert David Steele, and Simon Parkes, son of an alien or something, are the trifecta of truth moving forward, ordained by President Trump. I mean, you're delusional. You're delusional. And all along, Colleen and I, that's why we've been saying you got to do the work. And the work is reading these books, is to reawaken yourself, because that's the gift that Tolkien's giving you inside, is the Great Awakening. And it's just freaking incredible. Everything that you're all saying, I mean, it's just, I should be writing all of it down, but think of the layers. Think of, you don't see all of the layers of Tolkien's genius here. Now look at this. We talk about those who are betraying us, and it starts with the likes of Grima Wormtongue. Okay, so he is a double agent. He's actually loyal to Saruman, and he's betraying the people of Rohan. But Saruman, as we find out, is just a punk ass. He's just a punk ass for Sauron, and it's
he has nothing but contempt for Wormtongue.
Yeah, nothing but, and by the way, it's the same feeling that the 13 hidden families have for their minions, like the Clintons. They can't stand them because they can't stand anyone who capitulates so readily and easily, because it reminds them of them. And so they can never.
Because they admire strength, not weakness. And weakness to capitulate to the 10% of your side.
So Charlie and Colleen, we're sorry we have to kill you, but we do. We just want to say, though, that you're a worthy opponent, and we respect you, but we have to kill you. But we respect you. And they don't respect their minions because they hand over. And
they don't, sorry to interject, Charlie, they don't fear their minions, but they fear us, because they fear, and everything to do with the enemy is fear. So Sauron fears Aragorn when he comes in. Interested that the etymology of Aragorn is arrow, which is lord or high, and orn, which is tree, so lord of the tree. Who's united the masculine and the feminine. That's what Sauron and the enemy fears.
So our strength reflects their weakness, and they hate that. They hate it.
Yeah, the root of Sauron in one of the Elvish tongues, I can't remember, is detestable. It literally means detestable. And what is detestable? Detestable. I detest able.
It is,
that's what Sauron means.
That's in Quenya. I think that's in Quenya, and that it's detestable. And so what I was just going to say, when Aaron interjected, we'll go right back to Aaron here. But you see, this is all Cain and Abel. And remember, Sauron is just a punk ass for Melkor. And Melkor is one of the seven, or one of the Valar. And so Melkor is simply a representation of Satan. And remember, in the Silmarillion, Tolkien establishes all of this by saying you had Manwë and Melkor, who were from ostensibly the same seed, and one was righteous and one was wrongful. One was unifying principle, and the other was disdain of the many, and a desire to mar. And here's the thing that's just incredible. So Melkor, for being one of the Valar, what did he ever create? This is, I mean, again, the level of genius from Tolkien is staggering, because he didn't create anything. Aule created the dwarves. And then when I think Yavanna said to Auli that this is maybe an offense to Eru, God, then Auli was prepared to, he was humble on his knees before God and prepared to destroy his own creation. He didn't do this to mock God. He did this as a representation of his passion because of creation. And so Eru, God, said to Auli, no, this is beautiful, this is fine, but it's not the right time. So they shall sleep until it is their time to arise. And that's what happened. And in all that time, what did Melkor create? Nothing. He turned elves into orcs. He turned other Maiar spirits into dragons. He didn't create anything. Hate, fear, violence, lust, greed, left brain, the dime brain, it can't create. They're not creators. So for all the power that Melkor had, he couldn't create. He could only mock God's creation. And that's why the elves hate the orcs so much, because they are a mockery of the beauty of the elves. And what do the elves represent? Elves are just, they're just enlightened men, because they live in two worlds simultaneously, two in one, two worlds simultaneously. That's exactly how Tolkien described the elves, which is why the Maiar spirits loved the elves so much, because they were so similar, they were so alike. And what are the new man, or I mean, this is the best word ever. It's the best word ever. The Númenóreans, which are this heightened race of men who were loyal to God, loyal to the elves in the first age, and were gifted Númenor, Atlantis, Númenor is Atlantis. And they were gifted Atlantis, and they're the new men or ions. So that's Jesus Christ, because everything new is Jesus Christ, who is the resurrected one. He resurrects the world and makes it new again, because he regenerates. And that's how we live forever and ever and ever, year after year, but you have to do the work, and that's regenerate. So the new man, ore is gold. Remember, ore is gold, and your ions are your essence, because what is ion? I, the single I, it's a single I on. So this is entirely Jesus Christ. Númenóreans were the Christed ones who fell because they listened to the lies of Sauron. Sauron is Satan.
Which is what's happened to us. Kind man fell.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, let's go back to you guys, but just brilliant.
The root of Tolkien denied this often, but Sauron, the root of it is sour in Greek, and that means lizard. So whether, again, he was denying that because it was too obvious an allegory, but obviously it's the reptilian complex in us, the fear, the domination, the pure left brain survival. I just want to go back to Melkor, if that's okay, because I think obviously he didn't create anything in Middle-earth, but even prior to that, in the Anu Lindale, I think you pronounce it, the creation myth that Tolkien wrote. So the Ainur were given permission to adorn the theme of Eru Ilúvatar with their own beauty and thoughts, but only if they were kind of in line with that natural law. But Melkor, in fact, I've got a good quote. He set to interweave matters of his own vain imagining that were not fitting to the great theme of Ilúvatar. And he brought discord, and this is a quote, straightway harshness. I thought it was really interesting that the word straightway was used, because it's obviously the opposite of the straightway back to Eru Ilúvatar. Interesting as well that Melkor, and this is why I think it's so similar to Lucifer, he wanted to create something himself, and all he could create was discord and disharmony. But even then, Eru Ilúvatar turns around to him and said, even that, my son, I'd already written that you would be the adversary. And that, I think, is his great shame. Like, even in his own vain imaginings, he couldn't outdo the father. The father had already written his role as the adversary.
Satan, Lucifer, right?
Absolutely, absolutely so, and absolutely brilliant. And when you heard Aaron talking about Melkor and then referring to God, the name that Aaron was using is Eru Iluvatar, which are the two names for God. And if you look at both, Eru, Iluvatar. So E is ether, R is rising, and U is the eucatastrophe. So God is the ether that is always rising to the miracle because God is the creator. And all of this creation is a miracle. So that's perfect.
And you
And
absolutely
then
know that Tolkien knew, he knew the English alphabet.
he knew
He
the
knew it.
etymology of these words, and he knew the gematria of all of these words. And we're going to go into this on our next show, where we're going to go into a ton of gematria of all of these names, and you're going to be blown away because clearly Tolkien knew. And you look at a name like Aragorn, and Aragorn tells you, the name Aragorn tells you in plain sight, he's Jesus Christ. Absolutely, and you'll see the gematria to this, but an Iluvatar is illuminated, and that's what we have to do to get to God. Is we have to illuminate the pineal gland, the portal within us to this other world. And I mean, these writings, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but I mean, I still can't read it without crying. I've never been able to master reading that passage without breaking down into tears, and that's near the very end of the Lord of the Rings. And Sam, Merry, and Pippin are in silence. They're in pure silence, staring into the darkness, because it's symbolic of this journey home that the righteous ones, that Gandalf and that Elrond and Galadriel and Frodo and Bilbo are all, and Shadowfax, by the way. Yeah, let's eat horses and animals, because Shadowfax didn't go to eternal heaven and glory. Oh, he did. He did. So maybe there's a message there. So on their journey back home into the darkness, that's how Tolkien wrote it. That Sam, Merry, and Pippin for hours were just in complete silence in the darkness, listening to the endless washing of the waves upon the shoreline, lost in their own thoughts. And then Tolkien describes this incredible scene. And then suddenly, upon a night of sweet rain, Frodo hears singing across the sea, and he rose to the deck, and there he saw it. And I mean, for the average person, for myself, reading it for 40 years and not getting all of it, and then you see the alchemical masterpiece, because this is the highest expression of alchemy. This is the whole. It's the truth of truths, and it is Christ returning home. It is everything. It's what we're here for, and that is Frodo saw. What did Frodo see? He saw white shores, which is God, on a far green country, which is the mother, under a swift sunrise, which is Jesus Christ.
It's beautiful.
It's perfect.
It really is.
It always struck me as interesting as well that Frodo couldn't stay in the village, the mythological village, the Shire. He had that Morgul wound. My sense is that everyone who's chosen this journey to look into the darkness has got that wound within us. We've seen into Sauron's lidless eye, and we've carried that burden, and done the best that we can do. But what choice comes after that? Well, what happens to Frodo and Bilbo? They go to the Undying Lands. They choose. They know they must transcend the physical and go the full way.
What you said just then just reminded me of that poet that said, "Your purpose is hidden within your wounds." Can't remember who it was. Really.
And the fact, one of the things I appreciated the most, by the way, we see Josh X in the chat room. Josh, thank you for being here, brother. We love you so much, and your just genius wisdom so much. Josh, thank you. To you and Michelle, thank you so much. But what always got me so much is how in the appendices we see this whole story, because it's so important. What does Tolkien say? In the 50th anniversary edition of The Lord of the Rings, he said, if I made a mistake, if I made one mistake, he said, it's not long enough. When Colleen and I were reading it together, we were just screaming. We were screaming in joy, because it's like, we always have said that. It needs to be at least three times
Some people
larger.
say that they won't watch the movies because they're so long, and I just look at them like...
Not long enough.
Yeah, they leave so much out.
I could watch the Shire goings on just all day long.
Yeah.
All day long. Yeah, so it's just like, and the fact that the book is, you're just like, is there more? Is there more?
and thankfully to Christopher, there is, and so I just devoured as soon as the last word, and Sam comes home, sits down at his table setting that was intuitively.
Oh yes.
Oh, I love that book.
I haven't read it yet.
You haven't?
No, not yet.
It's powerful. It's powerful. Wow. Left brain, right brain. So and then Sam says, "Well, I'm back," and so that ties into what Aaron was just saying as well, which is that Frodo and Bilbo had the Morgul wound. So did Sam. And when Sam came back to the Shire, he had so much work to do. He was in so many ways the father of the Shire. And then how beautiful that his eldest daughter Eleanor, which is the sun star flowering of humanity, she took over. That it was the feminine of Sam's seed that took over Eleanor, the sun star flower of humanity. And but all along Sam knew he too had to go on this great journey. And again, oh, I'll never be able to stop crying over this stuff, but Sam goes too. So if you haven't read it, I've
But they go
given
to the
ultimate
undying lands.
Exactly.
So they're never going to die.
That's right.
Which is also called Aman. Aman is the name of it, so it's aimed at the man. Yeah.
And in the Bible, Jesus is asked, "What is your name, Lord?" And he said, "Aman, for I've been to Egypt and back again. I've been to Mordor and back again." It's the only way. It's the only way. You have to go to Mordor. You have to destroy Sauron's ring.
And you can't send anybody else in your place. You have to go.
That's right.
And you have to choose. You choose to go. You can't be
moment,
sent. You have to choose that journey yourself.
Yeah. But we can't expect anybody to. There's too many people want somebody on a white charger come and save them, and it's not going to happen.
This is why I so much passion inside of me when people go on and on about aliens. There are no aliens. There's no, and outer space does not exist the way that modern science and the Cabal have told us, because God would never have created it that way. What I've taught from the beginning is this: if outer space is the way that we have been taught that it exists, then God is an elitist, because only the rich few, only conglomerates of corporations or evil governments can afford to create trillion-dollar machines that are capable of traversing these grand distances. And so they get the gift of space and we don't. And the only way we can get there is if we go to their schools, wear their uniforms, their patches, follow their rules, and then you see the same bullshit on Earth will take place in space. There's no way. There's absolutely no way.
Eugene saying, "Why am I not in this call? I'm so sad." Eugene, get online.
Get online.
Yeah, come on, brother. I'll send you a link right now.
That's right, Eugene. So you see, it is sacrilegious, and it is antithetical to look at space the way. And by the way, in the Bible, how does everyone miss the 120 plus references to the firmament in the Old Testament of the Bible? And Genesis alone is powerfully telling you that this is a journey, right? That's why, who dominates in Genesis, Abraham and Jacob, and this journey that we have to go on, and then that this is a protected, controlled environment that is still, that the earth has never moved, and every single culture and every single sacred text has always written the same thing. Always the same thing. And so, for those of you who aren't big readers of The Lord of the Rings, haven't got into depth, what you need to know is that what Professor Tolkien created was a level plane. That's what Middle Earth, I mean, it's perfect. We'll get into the whole understanding of Middle Earth later, but just so that you know, it was completely level. The straight and narrow way into the Undying Lands is what existed until the Númenóreans attempted, when they fell, which is us, man falling by the deceiver, the hand of the deceiver, Satan, Lucifer. Then God created this illusion of curvature. I mean, it's perfect. The straight way still exists, but you can't get there. So he created the illusion of curvature so that man could not attempt to do what? Because when the Númenóreans, who are on the island of Númenor with their great temple, it's Babel. It's Nimrod and Babel, and it's the fall of man. And we tried to take heaven by force. The Númenóreans attempted to take the Undying Lands by force because they captured Sauron. And instead of executing him, they kept him as an advisor, and he filled them with lies and said, no, they're not eternal. They're eternal because the land is eternal. If you kick them out, you become eternal. And the Númenóreans bought that because they had to. Man had to fall. Because if man didn't fall, there's no Aragorn. And if there's no Aragorn, there's no Jesus Christ. This is the Redeemer. R-E. This is the regenerator, R-E. This is the resurrection, R-E. Aragorn is the resurrection of man, and this is how we get back home.
And when you say R-E, you mean?
Rightfully, as Josh X would say, rightfully established. Rightfully establishing yourself at the right-hand side of God. So we fell.
Versus a D-E word.
Which is, D-E is to take away. So when you say, I'm delighted to see you, what you're saying to the person is, every time I see you, you take my light away.
So this is really interesting because the Cabal has upside downed our words. So we need to flip them back up and take a look at everything that we're saying, because we're creating dark spells or light spells. And we no longer want to be putting forth that darkness. It's all about from dark to light. So that it's wonderful to have this understanding so that we can, bring forth the light and change all of the things that have been programmed into our minds, and we no longer put that darkness out there. So Sauron,
we need to start fresh, don't we, and learn from beginning. Because trying to tell somebody the other day something, and every time I went to use the word believe, I stopped myself, and I was grasping for different words to use, because once you've seen it, you can't unsee it, can you? So it becomes quite difficult then to actually speak, to be articulate in any way without having to thinking, I really do need to go back and start again here, because
we've got to,
when you've been on the earth as long as I have, and I'm the oldest here. It's difficult, because, and I think this is why we can get a bit overwhelmed sometimes as well, because I don't know about you, but this etymology, it absolutely fascinates me, and I can't every word I see now, I'm looking for the real meanings all the time.
Yeah, well,
Time-consuming.
we've got to reclaim this language and recognize, and that's another one from Josh, recognize when we are casting these black magic spells upon ourselves based on the things that we're saying. And the more we're aware of it, it is difficult at first, but it's just like anything with practice, we start to choose the right words and discard the rest, and say, no more of your spells. I'm not going to cast it on myself any longer.
And when
You
Charlie's
become
written his book, when Charlie's written his etymology book, then it'd be like carrying it around, like when you're trying to learn a foreign language and you're looking at the phrases. Yeah, can't wait.
It's so true, and of course Josh knows this inside and out, absolutely inside and out. And what you were saying, Sandra, is so true. Is that because once you've seen the light, the face of God, you can't unsee it. So every time we're confronted with darkness again, then we see the darkness, and then you're just going, no, I'm not going to use those words anymore. But what do I use? Because they've just hijacked our language. And remember, it's all beautiful, but the way we use these words are all now upside down. So this is one of the biggest things that through Josh, what spurred me on to do was to do this great homework research of etymology, and I looked at thousands and thousands of words, and then I just got to a point and I said, that's it, all of it is just a complete lie. All the words have now been turned, and you go back to the etymology and largely you'll see that it's a Proto-German or Proto-Indo European, or right to Sanskrit, and that the literal definitions of virtually all of these words are the exact opposite of what we're using them for now. And a great example that I always use is the word fine, which in alchemy is the highest, is to be fine, because you have to get back to heaven on gossamer wings, this silk thread, the super fine material that is translucent. It is so you can't tell if it is a physical thread or if it's just a frequency. You really can't tell. It's just so thin and so perfect because it is finesse. It is subtle. It is not the physical body. It is not the spine. It's the silver cord that transcends two worlds into one. And so fine is the highest expression of achievement, of anything. So when you say to someone, fine, you're giving them the ultimate compliment. What have the Cabal turned it into? Fine is okay. Well, that was fine. Or you've done something wrong, schmuck. Here's a fine for doing something wrong. You think these are accidents? There are no such thing as accidents or coincidences. Everything is purposeful, whether it's divinely so or evilly so. Everything is purposeful. So they have attacked the word fine because they don't want you using. So every time
they've made everything perverse, haven't they? Everything is perverse.
Yeah.
Everything is upside down, inside out, back to front.
And did you say the word finesse, Charlie? I didn't catch it because I was
yeah, I did. I said finesse, and then what I was saying was it's just finesse for subtle. So the subtle body, which is the metaphysical versus the physical. So
because finesse is 77, Christ 77, power 77. But yeah, I also wanted to run by you guys because Lord of the Rings, well, the Lord is Saturn. So as we raise the chrism and get to the crown, it's the whole journey of coming back, bringing the oil, raising the Son of Man back, and how everything in the world is trying as hard as possible to distract you from it, to not put the ring in Mount Doom. So I thought that was interesting. And the thing I wanted to bring up from the chat, just a key scene that I always remember, is when Gimli's blowing the horn and they're about to ride out, like they're about to face all their fears, and the odds are 0 to none, you know what I mean? And suddenly, yeah, he blows the horn, which is Aries the ram. And as the crucifixion happens and it's coming up, because it's all astrology at the end of the day, right? Gandalf is coming with his blinding white magnetic light. Yeah, because we're at the equator. And then they come charging down. It's just fantastic.
It is.
Wow.
It's absolutely.
It is, and again, you know, you some people say this, have said this to me. You know, you go on and on about Aragorn being Jesus Christ, but I actually don't see the crucifixion of Aragorn. Well, it's there, and it's there in plain sight. I mean, first off, all that is gold, you know, all that glitters is not necessarily easily seen. So Aragorn had to hide his true lineage for his entire life, and so you're what you're seeing constantly from because nobody knows this, but what is the price that Elrond put upon Aragorn for his daughter's love? That he would hand over his daughter in betrothal to no one less than the reunifier of two realms into one. Two realms into one. That's what he said. This isn't enough for you to do the work and to reestablish the kingdom of Arnor in the north. That does nothing. He'll surround you and he'll devour you at some point. I'm not leaving my daughter for that. You have to defeat your own worst enemy. You have to go through this crucifixion. And you have to go to Mordor, and you have to help the ring bearer. And what does Frodo? What does Aragorn say to Frodo when Frodo's leaving? And it was played out so beautifully by Peter Jackson in the movie version of The Lord of the Rings. And that is, I would have gone to the very fires of Mordor. And anyone who reads those books knows that Aragorn would have absolutely have said that to Frodo, because you know that that's what Aragorn was planning. We know in his mind he was thinking himself and Gimli and Sam, because he could not be kept back, would escort Frodo to Mordor. You have, when Aragorn says that, you have no idea what he's giving up. He's giving up everything, because we don't know the backstory, but he's giving up everything to say, Frodo, the smallest, the least of us, I am your humble servant. I am your humble servant. And so remember, at the end of this, at the end of the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, and it's only the rising of Aragorn's light, right? The first light of that next morning, when everyone saw the gloom because they saw the pirates coming up the coast, and then suddenly, what is unfurled upon the leading ship, the leading pirate ship? So you see, Tolkien called them pirates. The Corsairs of Umbar are the pirates, which are the Phoenicians. So he totally knows this, and the only way to defeat them is to take over them. And so that's why the significance of Aragorn coming into the battle upon the lead pirate ship, and he's got a skull and crossbones on the pirate ship, and all the orcs are cheering, and they know that the victory is at hand. And then Tolkien writes that the men of Gondor tighten their belts a little tighter, and faced their defeat, because their defeat was at hand with the arrival of these pirates. And then another eucatastrophe, another miracle, because out of the dark comes the light. And what had Arwen been working on with starlight and moonlight? Because who does she represent? Starlight and moonlight, the even star to her people. Arwen on a black background creates, out of the light of the sky, which is photonic light, God light, magnetic light, and she creates what? What does she create? She creates the tree of life with the 7 stars and the crown on top.
Maybe this is what Space Force is doing up there.
Yeah. And Aragorn arrives, and and Aaron knows it, who did Aragorn utilize to be able to get to a point where they could overwhelm the enemy? He even resurrected the dead himself. What does Gimli say both in the book and in the movie? My God, even the dead follow his will.
But what are they going to do with the John Galton? All those people that were dead, we're going to resurrect them. Like, oh my God. Are incredible. Wow.
Wow.
This is an incredible time to be awake. I'm just, what a...
The white tree of Gondor is all 7 colors in one, isn't it? So it's representing that the balancing of all 7 chakras, and yeah, the Lord of the Tree is Aragorn. We know means. Yeah,
magnetism, baby.
That's the one.
And when Aragorn receives his crown, how does the process occur? And Aragorn wants it this way. So Frodo takes the crown from the casket, which had laid in mothballs for hundreds and hundreds of years. Frodo takes the crown from the casket, brings it to Gandalf, and he asks that G puts it, and this is the white G, puts it on his head. And what was Aragorn's position before Gandalf? He was on his knees because he's penitent before God. The white G, Gandalf, is God on earth. And Aragorn is humble, so he wears his crown the right way because his head was bowed before Gandalf, and so the crown is here, not here. The crown is here, and that is the alchemical truth, the alchemical masterpiece. This is stunning stuff. I mean, we could go on for an eternity and begin only to scratch the surface at the genius of Tolkien, and it's really incredible. What? Go ahead, continue.
I was just going to say that Gandalf's Maya name is Olorin, which means dreams, or the visionary dreams. So he almost plays like the Vishnu character. It's like he's the one who can dream the weird, as the Norse call it, the weird web of synchronicity, or as Tolkien calls it, chance. Everything in Middle Earth is chance. The Council of Elrond wasn't planned. It just occurred through dreams. And I think that's where Gandalf really comes in, is that messenger of the gods.
And listen to this. You talk about the Tolkien's knowledge of all of this, not just Christianity, but all of it. So that is absolutely true about the Vishnu aspect to his character, to Gandalf. But look at Shiva. When Gandalf arrived in Middle Earth, Círdan, who had the 3rd elven ring, which was the ring of fire, which was designed, the ring of fire. So there's the baptism of fire everywhere that Gandalf went. Stormcrow, because he never went anywhere where he wasn't needed. He didn't go for glory and fame and to get praise and to be lauded like Saruman. Gandalf took no permanent home, and he only went to where help was needed. Gandalf, Stormcrow, my God.
And arrived exactly when he was meant to.
And all, that's right. Exactly right. And so when he arrives, he's given this ring of fire by Círdan, and what does that symbolize? This is Shiva without balance. And Gandalf the Grey, with that awesome force to raise people up, began to despair. He's gray because the whole world is being pissed on by the Cabal, and the gray rain curtain of this world is devouring us, and it's affecting Gandalf. Every year Gandalf gets grumpier and grumpier and grumpier and more angry, and on the journey himself, all the way to Moria, Gandalf is just cantankerous the whole time through, because he has his own cross to bear. He has his own ring to deal with. He has his color and his shade that needs to change. He had to go. He had to die. He had to fall. We can all talk about this today, and I hope that everyone will feel comfortable enough doing so. But I cried and cried and cried when Gandalf fell. And I have to tell you, thank God that those books are separated, because after Gandalf fell, I cheated and I couldn't stand it. And I just read forward everywhere, just looking for Gandalf's name in all the rest of the Fellowship of the Ring, and I couldn't find it. Thank God those books were separated, because I wasn't meant to find. I needed faith. I needed hope. I needed to trust that Gandalf would come back again, because that's what happened. That's the look on Frodo's face. One of the greatest things that Peter Jackson ever did, when I saw those, when I went to see those movies in fear, because I didn't want anyone to destroy what the legacy of what Tolkien had created. So I was fearful. And then you start to watch this and your fear just becomes taken away completely. But when in Moria, you see those three shots that Peter Jackson does, zooming in on Aragorn's face after Gandalf falls, that he won me over 100% in that moment, because that was everything. You have to know what Gandalf meant to Aragorn, both physically and metaphysically. And when Gandalf fell, it made no sense. And so in that first image in the movie of Aragorn, you can just see the insanity. How could this happen? It doesn't make sense. It's like the whole world, when we heard that President John Kennedy had been shot, it was the first look, I'm sure, of everyone was, no, you just can't take the light of this world out of it. When we needed it the most, you couldn't take this light out of this world. But they did.
No, just like revisiting the books, you really do need to keep revisiting the movies as well, because the way they it's also perfect, the way he focuses on their faces, Eowyn's face, Frodo's face, their expressions. There's so much you can see in those faces and those expressions, and he was absolutely brilliant at that. Absolutely brilliant the way he did that, because it says so much without saying anything.
And Charlie, wouldn't you say it was almost as if Aragorn lost his father?
Absolutely so, because Aragorn didn't have a father. His father was killed when Aragorn was a year old, and then from there he was fostered by Elrond in Rivendell, who did become a father figure to him. But Elrond also became in a way an obstacle to Aragorn, because this was the capstone denying him Arwen, who is the queen of the feminine on this earth. Well, the night, because Galadriel is the day. Galadriel, we'll get into that. Celeborn and Galadriel. Celeborn silver, Galadriel gold. What a bold thing for Tolkien to do.
We'll do that on the second one.
We'll get into that another thing, but it's incredible. But Arwen is the queen of the night, and she is the mass star of and she declared her love for Aragorn, and Aragorn had to put all of that on the shelf, all of his hopes, all of his dreams, everything on the shelf to serve mankind kindly. He was the kind man on Middle-earth. And Gandalf desperately needed Aragorn, because Aragorn balanced Gandalf's rising despair, rising anger, rising frustration. And then Aragorn needed Gandalf, because Gandalf had that fire inside of him that always, and you could see it flicker with Aragorn, like when the hobbits in Bree, and Aragorn is so tired of being looked down upon always by everyone, and the hobbits make the comment about his sort of shaggy appearance, and Aragorn just goes right in powerfully into his little diatribe, which Arwen had Bilbo had actually written it for him, and all that glitters is not gold, and so it's just the most brilliant like that's what Sandra's saying. So both in the books, where these words have to go millions of miles to tell this whole story, and the same with the movies. Every shot is so important because it has to convey 1,000 miles of terrain, and every word for Tolkien and there are so many words in the Lord of the Rings, had to convey 1,000 miles of year, 1,000 years and 1,000 miles of terrain in every single word.
And he did a beautiful job.
And that's why you have to read these books and reread these books. And that's why Sandra and Aaron both said that when you reread the books, you never are bored by doing this, because more continually comes out. It just continues to reveal itself to you, which is how Tolkien wanted it. And that's how the Bible is written. The Bible, the more you read it, like Justin, I love Justin so much for encouraging everyone to read the Bible more and more daily. Just read, and in particular the New Testament passages are books like Matthew and Luke, in particular Revelation, because the truth is all there, and the more you read it, it just leaps from the pages into your heart and into your mind. It leaps from the pages into you, and it inspires you. This is where you're getting that fire from. This is leading you to this baptism of fire. And again, we'll just go back, and I'll pass it over to Aaron, but we go back to Gandalf, and Gandalf had to fall, and it just killed me at the time, but eventually I got to the point of going, wow, I get it. He had to fall because Gandalf had to rise. He had to rise. And who does he fall and fight but a Balrog? A Balrog, a demon of fire.
Which is his left side, which is his ego, right? The shadow part of him. So beautiful.
Aaron?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and the fact that he has to rise with the Balrog up to the peak of the mountain as well. You know, it's not just that he falls into the root Muladhara chakra; he has to rise back up Jacob's ladder. I love the way Tolkien, as you say, makes us feel like we're on that journey, but also how alive Middle Earth is. It's not just a barren landscape, it's there, and it's the Hermetic law of correspondence, as above so below. Everything that is occurring in the story is reflected in the environment. So when Sauron has dark thoughts, you have the dark brooding storm clouds, and you know, none of this is accidental. It's genius, and you know, it's showing everything. I found it really interesting before about how you said Eleanor becomes the leading power in the Shire afterwards, because Sandra and I and Colleen had a discussion about why there was so many deaths of the feminine in the Lord of the Rings, and my thoughts around it were that Tolkien was trying to show that in the Age of the Orc, the feminine was completely under attack and, you know, raped, pillaged, murdered, gone. But also I think he wanted to draw our attention back to the deepest or the highest mother, Middle Earth, and to show us that she was always there throughout the whole story, although there's only a few, but they are very strong female characters. The one that's all the way through it is Middle Earth herself.
That's true.
It's brilliant.
I mean, even the towers look like phallic symbols, like the evil towers. So exactly, it's a totally destruction of the divine feminine, and doing so destruction of the masculine. But I want to add, for the Balrog, it's funny how it's an elemental battle too, because it's fire coming into water. So it's the father with the mother, and it's that mix too, as you were saying, and then eventually back up to the top. And I want to ask you, Charlie, I feel like Gandalf, because when we had the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, I was thinking Aragorn Gandalf. Because I honestly think Saturn, old man time, Gandalf, as he gets grumpier, you know, is the positive aspect to Saturn, which gives you the redeeming quality, and then later can actually give you the crown. And then Saruman would be the negative aspect of Saturn. And you, interesting how you said Cap, he was on his kneecaps, Aragorn was, because as a penitent man. Well, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and at the same time, when you get to the crown, that's also Saturn. So it's a journey of the Lord of the Rings, the Saturn. Yeah.
And Capricorn rules the knees as well. So you have to, when you're rising from Capricorn, you're literally coming from your knees back upwards.
Yeah, and again, Capricorn, everything in this dualistic reality, as above, so below, as within, so without, as universe, so with the soul. Everything is dualistic in this physical manifestation of God. So Capricorn is high and low, because Capri is the wild goat that will eat its food in one day and have a terrible tummy ache, and then have nothing to eat for the next 30 days, because it has no balance in itself. And this is why it's called Capricorn, because the only way that the capricious goat can become the Lamb of God, the perfect Lamb of God, is to take of the corn, which is the flowering of the pineal gland. And that's why in Field of Dreams, the movie is in Iowa, and he's a farmer who's planting corn because Joseph had the wisdom in Egypt to know that a drought was coming and we need to plant corn. Build it, and he will come. Ease his pain. Go the distance. Oh my God. It's incredible. So really wonderful things that are being said, and the parallels being shown here. And really you see the parallels clearly between Gandalf and Saruman, because Saruman sees Gandalf as ultimately his greatest enemy. He thinks he can go around Sauron. He'll get the ring. So don't worry about that. I'll deal with Sauron when the time comes. But it's Gandalf who is his mortal enemy, because Gandalf is good and Saruman is evil, and so he doesn't count Sauron as his great arch enemy, because they're both evil. It's Gandalf. So this goes back to what Sandra was saying earlier. Again, Cain and Abel. This is all Cain and Abel, and that's why so many in Middle Earth during those dark years. Look at the way that Theoden greeted Gandalf when Gandalf escaped by Gwahir and the Eagles, and came to Rohan begging for a horse, and Theoden treated Gandalf like absolute dirt. Of course, being poisoned by the words of Wormtongue through Saruman, but it still plays itself out. But to Gandalf, what does Gandalf say in the books makes this so clear? He was sent back to match Sauron. He knows that on Middle Earth, the number one enemy is Sauron, and Gandalf doesn't really fear. He knows Saruman is a pain in the butt. He's a thorn in their side that must be dealt with first. And if we are successful, then we go to our greater task. But you see, it's just brilliant, because Gandalf is good, he sees the true evil. And because Saruman is evil, he sees Gandalf as his greatest enemy. So it's just brilliant. And in the light comes truth, and in the darkness comes the delusion. And that's why everyone who looks into the Palantir, including Sauron, is always deceived, because the Palantir is the illuminated pineal gland.
Isn't that interesting that they have in the queue, they always talk about the looking glass? That would be like the Palantir, right?
Oh, for
the oracle.
The oracle, which is the looking glass. So I just don't want this point to get lost here. So everyone who is evil, who looks into the Palantir, is deceived by the Palantir, including Sauron, who makes his grave mistake after Aragorn takes control of the Palantir. But Aragorn is the only one who was righteously established, as Josh would say, R.E. Aragorn was the only one who had the right. And when Aragorn's right was being questioned by I think it was Gimli. Where was that? Where they had the big battle with Saruman's orcs at Helm's Deep. So at Helm's Deep, after the battle, Gimli says, Legolas warns him to look from looking into the stone, and Gimli kind of derides him a little bit by saying, I don't think you should do this. It's Sauron, and Aragorn's just flares again. That passion inside that has been suppressed for so long flares like a white light flashing again, and he says, he says firmly to Gimli, "Don't you dare doubt me," and my right to be able to look into the stone certainly cannot be doubted, because Aragorn is the risen man. Aragorn is Christ, so Christ can look to the oracle. Christ can look into the all-seeing eye. That's what the Palantir represents, right? It's a single eye, and you can look into it. And Aragorn was not deceived. And what was the greatest sufferance of pain that Sauron had ever felt was when Aragorn wrestled control of the all-seeing eye away from Sauron. And then in the short moments that Aragorn had, he saw the whole Middle Earth in movement, in flux. Which is, if you could illuminate yourself now, you'd see everything that the Q team is doing to prepare for what's coming. But nothing's happening. Are we there yet? Nothing's happening. Are we there yet? Because you haven't done the work to be able to have the right to look into the Palantir.
That's right. And the hobbits in the Shire had no idea what was going on. Nobody had any idea what was going on behind the scenes. And that's just exactly the way it is now. And I wanted to also point out that in Peter Jackson's movies, Aragorn is depicted a bit different than the books.
Very much.
So those of you who have not read the books, you need to understand that Aragorn was much stronger in the books than he appeared to be in the movies in the beginning.
And we get why Peter Jackson did that, because in such a short time.
But I don't like it.
Right, because it is a bit of a betrayal to the unwavering strength that was in Aragorn for all those years. Aragorn was the greatest man on earth because he was a man, because he went to Egypt and came back again. He had done it all. He went everywhere. He went so far south where the stars were strange. Oh, wow.
Australia.
Yeah.
Speaking of stars, wouldn't you say Aragorn is Jupiter again? Because he's the one that not only saves himself, but saves others. And then Saturn is a flipped coin, right? Because Saturn is the lowest of lows. He's the ruler of acidity. Jupiter is the ruler of alkalinity. So Aragorn matches alkalos. But when you flip the coin that is Saturn, again, you go from Sauron or Saruman to Gandalf. And then, let's see. And then, yeah, so when you raise the sacred secretion to the top and then you achieve your crown, this is the sovereignty, right? And it's funny how you were talking about the pirates, because the pirates are the opposite of the sovereignty. They are the maritime admiralty law. And so all the minions, the orcs, think they still have their pirates on their side. But little do they know, the Q team has stepped in, cut off the head of the Hydra, and at the same time have saved the children, which I also think the Hobbits are a reference for, because it's like, it's the innocence of us, the collective innocence, true, in no sense of us. But at the same time, it is the children, because that is the ultimate goal. That is the ultimate saving that needs to be done. So I think
Aragorn says that in the movie, doesn't he? When he says somebody, they're halflings, they'll be a child to your eyes. I think it was, can't remember who it was.
It would have been AMO when he's looking for Merry.
Right.
Yeah.
And one last thing, I think Frodo would be Mercury, because I think he's the word and message of God, because he's like carrying that weight. And at the same time, the word, like he doesn't even need to fight. Like, I mean, he does fight. There are a few fights, but ultimately it's the dropping of the ring that pulls out that magnetic force at the end. And to me, that's like the word made spirit. You know what I mean? Like that's like where the God's word destroys all spiritual wickedness that exists in an instant. And that's why I think Frodo would be Mercury, to Aragorn being Jupiter, and then Gandalf being the higher aspect to Saturn, or the crowning of Saturn.
Do you know, they just made me think of this is another reason why I think it's important to keep revisiting the movies and the books as well, because when I first saw Peter Jackson's movies, Frodo really irritated me. He really irritated me. By last time I watched it, it was he didn't anymore. But that was because I saw in him, when I first saw it, my own weaknesses. That's why it irritated me, because I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to see them in the same way that the dark side doesn't. They don't want to see in us what they can't accept themselves. But I couldn't accept parts of Frodo because that was me, and you need to get over that, don't you? Eventually, yeah.
And you know what? I'll shut up after this, I promise. And it's so interesting. It's because Gollum, Sam, and Frodo, it's a trinity. And I think that you can see Gollum as Frodo. It's just a different stage of him, a different time, just a different location.
Side of him. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why he has that, like, he can see towards Gollum's perspective, where Sam's the one who's constantly pulling him back out and saying, no, that's the ego. So Sam is like that neutral role. What do you call it? Or maybe Frodo's the middle way. It could go both ways, but I think it's a trinity. It's proton, electron, neutron, Israel. Oh. Same with Legolas. It has the L backwards, literally in the front. Aragorn, and then Gimli, right? So there's that trinity, and I think they're the definition of a perfect cell, a perfect unit, perfect unity. Therefore, and that's like the optic thalamus. Obviously, it's that symbology too. But that's what it's always a cell. And then we have Pippin, Merry, and then the tree. I forgot his name, but like at times, and then sometimes Gandalf fills in. But it's always a trinity, because as Tesla says, you got to work in threes. Anyway.
Well, look at the feats of endurance that Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas had to do together, acting as that perfect unit. And I came across a passage in the Bible that made me think of Aragorn's ability and where he gets that from. And it's I think it's Psalms. It's he that keepeth Israel, so the third eye, shall neither slumber nor sleep. So that they're drawing on that internal power, and contrast that with Sauron, where the lidless eye is external. Everything is out there. It's lidless because it can never shut off and go within. It has to see what it can dominate, and the mother especially.
So is it surprising then that I basically didn't sleep in the year 2020? That because of running the animal rescue sanctuary, and then we had to step up our game, because we had to step in to the Q movement and be able to explain things so that people could see that this is a movie, that they had already taken them down, how this all was done, and that you then operate from hope and strength and not fear and weakness. And so in the year 2020, what you just said, Aaron, is incredible. No, that's not exalting me. That's God working through me, because doesn't always have the best to work with, but you got to use what who answers the call. So that's the best thing you can say about Colleen and I, is that we heard the call and we answered the call, and then God used us in the most loving. He always was so thoughtful, considerate of us. But how like the thing that I tried to share with people is that when the sun started coming up at 6:30 in the morning, you just had to know what that feeling, the first few times, what that feeling was like to me, because there's no sleep. And then the physicality of the work that I have to do throughout the day is monumental. It's monumental. And the only way that I did this is because God just gave me the ability to do this. And again, it doesn't make me fantastic or special. It's just, it can happen to you. If you want this in your life, all you have to do is hear the call, the clarion call. Why are you not hearing the seagulls? The seagulls are all around you. They're calling you home in every single moment. Answer the call. 11:11, 11. That's why you always see 11:11 flashing everywhere. The temples, the twin temples, God is inside of you. The mercy seat is inside of you. Go within yourself and pick up the phone. Because when you go within via meditation, that's you picking up a phone, and then God is on the other side.
And trust your intuition when you hear those calls. Just trust yourself.
Yeah.
There's a scene in the movie where they're all running along, and Gimli says, we haven't eaten for 3 days, we haven't slept for 4 days, but they carry on running, they don't stop. They don't stop because they don't need to.
And he has the shortest legs.
Yeah. Yeah. He might have been running behind, but he kept up with them.
Yeah, and remember in the book, I mean, it's essentially 3 days and 3 nights. So Tolkien is showing you fasting. He's showing you the miracle of the 72 hours, the 3 days and 3 nights of Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas. And so I just wanted to tie this back to the brilliance of what Eugene was saying earlier about tying in the two trinities. They're the same. You see, you had Gollum as perfect redshift, and you had Frodo who had now become perfect blue shift, and Sam. That, remember what I was saying, Sandra and Aaron, earlier in the show, that there's the Jesus aspect to Samwise Gamgee as well, because Sam is the redeemer. Sam is the unifier between, as much as he hates Gollum, Sam is the unifier between these two extremes. It's different in the movie, but in the books, boy, do you ever see this. And I mean, you have to read that for yourself. When you get into those chapters in The Return of the King that are dealing with the escape from Cirith Ungol, and then Sam leads the way. This is, I mean, I could read those every single day, every moment of every single day, and never grow tired of any of that, because this is some of the best writing that anyone, it's just like in Lothlorien, with the creation of Lothlorien in Galadriel. And this is just the most enlightened writing that anyone has ever done, man or woman, that anyone has ever done. It's just so brilliant. And so you see that Sam, who denied his ego, right? And remember, when Sam was going through Gethsemane, when he was going through his own night before the crucifixion on the Mount of Olives in the Garden of Gethsemane, and Sam was having his own doubts as Christ had his own doubts. What was happening? Sam's mouth was completely parched because he gave all the water to Frodo. His stomach was bloated and empty because he gave all the morsels of the lembas bread to Frodo. He had sacrificed everything for this higher blue shift, higher belief in the higher realm, sacrificed everything. And Sam's laying there. And remember what Tolkien wrote? Mordor slept uneasily. There were rumblings and trembles all through the night. And suddenly a voice pops up in Sam's head, and it says, "You can't go on like this. You're giving him all the water and most of the food, and you've left nothing for yourself. You know you're not going to be able to take him up that mountain by yourself, and you'll certainly never get back down. Why don't you just lie down and die?" And
have any of you ever felt like that?
And what did Sam say and do? No! And when Sam said no, what did the earth, because this is tying to the brilliance of what Aaron was saying later, how Tolkien wrote all of this alchemically and geophysically as well, because Sauron is this great power over his lands, and so everything in his lands, as above so below, as within so without, is reflecting Sauron. And so Sauron is asking, Satan is asking Sam to lie down and die, and when he doesn't, what in that precise moment occurred? A big tremor or occurs again, in frustration that Sam will not give up. And that's why they hate us. That
moment of eucatastrophe.
Sam isn't the most beautiful hobbit in the entire world, although...
Oh, I think he is.
Isn't it funny that his daughter Eleanor actually looked like Galadriel, and there's so much Galadriel in Eleanor, it's unbelievable. And that these hobbit children all started to look like elves.
It makes sense because his blood was changed. Exactly. His bloodline, experience he went through. So his offspring had to be that change with which he came. Like, it just, that's what I'm trying to say about the bloodlines. We are becoming those beautiful, majestic, royal bloodlines by the works that we do. It's so exciting. We're in that eucatastrophe moment right now, everyone. So you cannot lay down.
And although Sam wasn't the official ring bearer, he still had to give up the ring back to Frodo, which is something even Frodo couldn't do. It took Frodo's shadow, Gollum, to do that, whereas Sam, makes that voluntary gift back to Frodo because he knows that's his burden.
And so that's what I was saying, that ultimately Sam is, as Sandra passionately screamed out, it's how I feel. Sam is the most beautiful character because Sam willingly gave up the ring. Who is Will? Abel. Ready, willing, and able. Ready, willing, and able. And that's how this all worked. Sam, that Trinity worked because Sam was Jesus Christ, because he was of the blood of Abel, through Abel's brother Seth to Abraham to King David and all the way to Jesus Christ. And so, folks, why do you think through Negative 48 and the Sacred Blue Tent channel coming out, and suddenly we're hearing about this Jesus strand, and that the Jesus strand leads all the way to John F. Kennedy? And then my whole life suddenly makes sterling silver clear sense with all of this. Why do you think that what's happening right now is like reading The Lord of the Rings? And clearly John F. Kennedy Jr. has people ask all the time, Charlie and Colleen, how do you know the mind of Q so well when clearly there are no outside comms? There are none. We've never been helped in any official way. But it's just that we've read the same books because we've all been drawn to the one story. So we're kind of, Colleen and I are masters of the one story, just like Josh X is a master of that one story. And clearly John F. Kennedy Jr. is. So there's no coincidence that we're big readers, believers, lovers of Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged or The Fountainhead. Clearly they know this. And
they even made a movie about it.
And they make so many references to Tolkien and Tolkien's world and the Lord of the Rings. It's incredible. So they know this. So what I wanted to say and show you is that what Tolkien said is that what is necessary to defeat this evil is he who will rise again and will never succumb to their temptations or lies, can't be bought off, Aragorn cannot be bought off. Samwise Gamgee cannot be bought off. They're the Christ in this story. And they will rise again and they will have their day. It's Jesus Christ. And this is the heart and soul to all monotheistic religions. Doesn't matter. Buddhism is Christianity and it's beautiful. I love Buddhism. The teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, I love. The religion part can go shove itself. Hinduism, the same thing. The religion part can go shove itself.
You don't need any kind of dogma. All you need is to not have a price tag. That's all.
That's right. You need the words of Krishna. You need the words of Buddha. You need the words of Christ Jesus our Lord. The words of Mary Magdalene. This is all you need. You don't need the hands of man to come in and muddle this all up. But that's the significance of what Tolkien is saying. And so everyone, please know that, future proves past. You're going to see that the Lord of the Rings is another Bible. This is biblical. This is the Lord of the Rings. And it's been showing us all along how this is going to be done. And so there has to be a Jesus Christ to all of this. There has to be. So you have Trump, who's Cyrus 45, who is the protector of this Christ seed. That's Gandalf. That's why they portray, look at all, I'm surprised no one has done the high-res image of Trump in Gandalf's hat and his gray robes. Someone should be on that.
Get your memes out there, guys.
Because that is Gandalf has been protecting and nurturing this Christly seed in Aragorn, so that Aragorn will have every chance possible that his seed will take hold upon the land and it will grow and it will rise in might. And then that's why the hobbits come into this, because they are the meek, and the meek shall inherit the earth, because they know not the horrors of this world, and they focus only on the goodliness of this world. Look at the Shire. There's no government. Look at the Shire. There's no policing force. Oh, wow.
They did it. That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
Fantastic.
It looks like a baby.
Screenshot that. Thank you.
Gotta love the internet.
That's right. Wow.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
They did a great job.
Yeah. And that's Moses.
Thank you, Justin.
Yeah. And that's Moses, and that's Gandalf, and that's Trump. And Trump has been protecting this Christly seed. And that Christly seed is this Joe Jr. Kennedy. That's not their real last name. And John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and then his children, and his eldest son, which is John JFK Jr. And so John Jr., John 47.
This one's even better. I had to share it.
That's awesome. The orange return.
Now that looks realistic.
It does. That's
So
really
you got the expression right.
Yeah.
So I hope that I'm doing a good job in explaining this to you. So there are no surprises to me anymore. So it's almost like I was waiting for all of this information to finally come out, and then this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the Lord of the Rings. I cannot believe my life, because my life has been dominated by the Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia, and then my search for the truth of John F. Kennedy, President Kennedy. It's been my life. It has. It's been my life. And so now it's all playing out before us in real time. And this is why you see the parallels to the Lord of the Rings, because there's one story. There's nothing that I can share with you to give you greater proof than this is Atlas Shrugged. This is the Lord of the Rings. This is the Chronicles of Narnia. And that's why the Q plan is playing out precisely the way it's playing out, because this is the Lord of the Rings, which is the Bible. This is the Bible. This is biblical. And Aragorn is that Christed seed that was protected for so many years by Elrond and by Gandalf, and then he was let loose. He was let loose to rise up against Sauron, and he defeated Sauron. And remember, just getting back earlier to what I was saying about, did Aragorn have his crucifixion? What's the first thing that Aragorn says after the great victory at the Pelennor Fields? Once again, Aragorn could say, well, I've now taken back Arnor, I've taken back Gondor, and I'll just fortify the boundaries, and we'll have this attrition against Sauron, but I've won my kingdom, so I can have my wife. But that's not what Aragorn says. Aragorn says, what we need to do is offer ourselves as bait so that Frodo and Sam will have a chance. Just one chance in a million to cross the Gorgoroth and to put evil to an end.
So what's this moment right now?
It's the art of war. It's when you are near, appear far. When you are far, appear near. So it's exactly that.
And
it's the art of now.
That's right. We are Frodo and Sam right now, and we have to carry the ring, and we have to drop it into Mordor. We do. And they're waiting for us to do this. So all of the Australians, all of the Canadians, all of the Americans, all of the world, this is what we have to do. And we have to say 10%.
Well, there's that wonderfully meta moment where Sam says, it's like the old stories, Mr. Frodo, full of darkness and danger. And he's talking about, do you think our story is going to be written down? So what Tolkien there is saying is, look at your own life, because what you do resounds in history. So he's asking you to look at what you're doing in this War of the Ring.
Hey guys, Justin and Eugene, how about the 13th warrior? What is the king who never had to go on this journey? He didn't have to go on this journey at all. And he gets.
Is that Michael Crichton?
That's right. That is with John McTiernan, who did all of these Patriot movies. The hunted becoming the hunters of the hunters. So that's us taking it to them. That's the Q team taking it to them. And and again, this is, by the way, the other trinity of Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. Just they're only three, but these are the hunted, because Aragorn's been hunted his whole life, and what's he doing? He's hunting a far superior number. And Éomer is going, and what would you have done if you overtook them? You were 3 against many. Trust it. It took all of us to be able to defeat this massive force. And Aragorn's going, you have no idea what I'm capable of. You have no idea what I would have done to them if I'd have caught up to them. And what does Éomer do in that moment? Éomer shrinks, even though with his golden hair upon the horse, upon those golden fields of Rohan, he shrunk. And Aragorn, who was standing on the ground beneath these horses, rose as a godlike figure above them. And Éomer appeared a mere boy to Aragorn, right? I mean, it's just genius. It's perfect, but it is the one story, and it is playing out this way for this particular reason. And in the 13th Warrior, the king is simply saying, because the 13th Warrior said that even if you were to die now, your life has great meaning because of what you selflessly did. And he says, but what would make it all worthwhile is if these great deeds were put into words, and then those words could be shared as stories. And then that's where the 13th Warrior, Christ, says, I will write this story for you. I will write what you did and sacrifice down. And so Aaron is making this incredible point that Tolkien is saying to each of us, that's why the hobbits are the ones, because the smallest in all of us can make the greatest difference in this world by becoming your own hero.
When Aragorn, when he, right at the end where he's distracting Sauron away from Frodo, and he makes that little speech while he's whirling on his horse, and he's basically saying to them, have no fear, have no fear. That's the way to do it. It's how we'll win. If you have any fear, then they're going to just overwhelm us.
Kind of like Braveheart. Like Braveheart, right? And and I have to bring up 13th Warrior because I wrote that down. Isn't it interesting how they have to go into the cave? Like they have to go down deep into the mother where the Cabal has penetrated and completely destroyed, and it's completely a death cult, and has to face, like you said, face the fear. Has to go into I don't know, it's the depths of depths. Not only is it the physical depth, but it's the metaphysical depth of themselves too. And same with Aragorn when he goes into, is it the Valley of the Undead? Am I saying that right? Where it's the green, what do you call it, ghosts or whatever, are there? Well, yeah, because they have to both go into this opening of the mother where there's this wrong that must be righted. And then in doing so, it's also a crucifixion. It's a reference to the allegory of going in the tomb and coming out a renewed man. And it's just great. Yeah.
As well, I mean, it's not enough really to lose your own fear. You need to reassure other people it's okay. They must lose their fear too. And that's what he was trying to do, wasn't it? And that's what we're all trying to do now, because I'm sure you feel the same. I have no fear, but it's trying to get other people on board with that.
In some sense, it's what Sam did too. And you said there's no coincidences, Charlie, so I gotta do this coincidence 103, bullshit 103. I think Sam is Mars, because in the beginning he's shy, but later on Sam gets really martial, and then he's willing to fend off anyone for Frodo. And like you were saying, he's really, I don't know how to say it, really mad with Gollum all the time. And isn't it funny that Mars is the ram, Mars backwards is ram, and he starts the ecliptic. So he's the Ram of God too, the innocent, pure, childlike, bursting forward force. So I don't think there was a coincidence there. And another thing I wanted to add to the Capricorn thing, Capricorn rules, or Capricorn brings lead. So interesting how Aragorn starts from lead and then goes to Leo, the heart, gold. So there's that thing too. And then Gandalf says, oh, you wouldn't like disarm a guy with his staff, right? You wouldn't disarm an old guy who needs to, well, you wouldn't take away someone's spine because that's the only thing we have to stand on. Like you were talking about Moses, and that it's so interesting how Aragorn is so similar to dragon. It just sounds like dragon to me. Like when I see Aragorn's name, because he is the Kundalini rising, which old man time gives the form, gives the staff, gives the spine, and keep going, y'all. I'm sorry for interrupting.
So what I would just add in is what Sandra and Aaron and Eugene were sort of referring to, are those moments of all of them, but in particular Aragorn, and that's wearing the armor of God. So that's when Aragorn knows that he himself has made himself and everything that is riding on this, which is a lot. And he's sacrificed his whole life, and he's willing to sacrifice. So again, Aragorn has experienced crucifixion after crucifixion after crucifixion, from losing his father at the age of 1 as well, to being denied Arwen. In return, he has to commit a miracle that's impossible, and then he's sent out alone to do this alone because the elves are in decline. And so he must find his own army, and there's no army to be found. So he has no choice but to resurrect the dead. Who's the only one that can resurrect the dead? Christ, our Lord.
And how many of us have been basically dead? We have to be resurrected, right? And that's what's going to happen. That we're going to be resurrecting those who are sleeping, which is like the dead. They've been eating death. They're part of the death cult. We all were. We didn't know it at the time. We awoken, and then those who haven't awoken will be.
And the only way we can resurrect the dead is if we become Christ, which is what we're supposed to do.
And interesting that Aragorn had to be completely chased in the wild for decades, and then you've got contrast that with something like Game of Thrones that we're given, and it's sex every scene, no sacred sex to be found. And Tolkien doesn't speak about sex at all because he doesn't need to. If anything, the Arwen figure in Aragorn's life shows the completion of the alchemical wedding. So his masculine and feminine becoming perfectly balanced, and then he receives the crown.
It's so true, so well said, and so true. And so again, why do you think suddenly we're hearing about this Jesus strand, and everything is now suddenly being rushed out on this Sunday, October 31st? The Sacred Blue Tent channel is going to release
Halloween
Strand Part 2. Which is going to focus a little bit more on Mary Magdalene, whom the Bible. So the men with penises, you just need to get over this, right? And by the way, don't mistake this at all. The two towers that people are confused over, which towers and the two towers, and no. The two towers are the two penises in Middle Earth that have to be dealt with in the two towers. The middle book is dealing with this death cult of the Phoenicians, which are the Canaanites. And that's why you have these two towers that are both constructed, essentially like phallic symbols. Isengard was created by the Númenóreans, but in a higher state. It's now been hijacked by Saruman and turned to pure evil. And then you have Sauron's atrocity, Barad-dûr, and these are the two towers. These are the two phallics, which is the false temple that must be torn down to reveal heaven upon earth. And that's what Aragorn has to do. So what do Gandalf and what's their plan? Their plan is two things. They have to take down two towers. They have to protect the one tower which is Minas Anor or Minas Tirith, but originally it's Minas Anor, which is the Tower of the Sun, and it has to be protected by taking down the two phallic symbols. Can't miss this symbology.
Kind of like a 9/11.
Yep, you cannot miss this symbology. It is like the reversal of 9/11. And so Isengard was taken down first and Barad-dûr was taken down second. But then again, the beautiful thing that Sandra and Aaron are both pointing out is that Aragorn does not succeed to his inheritance as king of the world. King of the world, John F. Kennedy, king of the world. He can't ascend to his inheritance without the help of even the smallest amongst us. Because the smallest amongst us can create the greatest miracle. And Frodo couldn't do it alone. And Frodo and Sam couldn't do it alone because Gollum alone knew the way. And so
most of the world has been made to feel as though they're completely insignificant, and in the grand scheme of things, they just don't matter.
Yeah, that's why they build the statues so big in communist Russia, to make you feel tiny.
Yeah.
And why they say the sun is 93 million miles away.
Yeah. And why when people say who cares what shape the earth is, it doesn't matter. It does matter.
Of course it does.
It's everything.
Tolkien even wrote that the sun and the moon come from the earth itself. That it's not somewhere out there. It's from the trees of a man. It's right there to guide us.
So for people who know this, what Aaron is saying, the two original trees of Aman were the original sun and the moon were two trees. Just so you know, the gold tree and the silver tree.
Funny, because we were talking about Aman. It's Amen Ra, which is the moon and Ra, sun and the moon. So, wow.
Well, and what Sandra was saying about how people don't care about the shape of the earth, what does it matter? I mean, that right there is just blatant moral relativism. It's basing it's my truth, your truth. It's that there is no such thing as absolute truth. I can just make it whatever I want, which is a slippery slope to saying I can justify any action that I have to pursue whatever ends to whatever means. And that is Satanism, plain and simple.
There's no possession to truth. It just is. Stands on its own.
Yep.
The ground of being.
Yeah.
And it's who we really are, without any veils of illusion. We are that truth. So when they say, what does it matter? Well, it's like, you're hiding from yourself. You are that Middle Earth. You are the level. So that's why it matters.
Cognitive dissonance is kicking their ass.
Yeah.
They want you to join them.
That veil is super glued to their faces.
It is.
But which is also, Aragorn, you touched on a point that's so important. That's why it has to be true on all levels, like all these shots and then how they write it. Because the story of the world is the story of you, because it's in you. Therefore, everything, and that's why I posted on the comments just now, level head 74, Jesus 74. Because if you don't have anything level, then you don't have anything that's true.
And Justin, what is the other name that we could call the Bible?
It's your name. Just enter your name here. It's our story, just like the Lord of the Rings. Take every character written in the Bible, take every character in the Lord of the Rings, take it as an aspect of yourself, whether it's your left brain or your right brain or somewhere in between. Some trauma that you've got to heal, some aspect of your past that you've got to work through, and all of it. Every little bit is it's our story, truly.
And all the answers are in there.
Right. Yeah, just like the Chronicles of Narnia, just like the Harry Potter books, like all of it. It's our story. It's the same.
But every story that's ever been written is basically the same one.
Yeah, that's God's.
Levels.
Yeah, that's God's sense of humor. Like no matter what, even if the cabal takes over Hollywood and they start making movies or writing books or whatever, they can't get away from this story because it's the only story that we really want to hear.
It's the only story that there is. So.
And there's only one authority, one true authority, author, it. Why? The true author.
And look at the word, how powerful is the written word. and they know this. And look at the word, break it down for me, everyone. Author. Just look at that word.
Aragorn.
Old Thor,
Gold.
and then we
Golden.
get Arthur.
In the body.
Yep. So
Yeah.
And Thor,
so
that's
gold
right.
gold Thor, and if you break it down further, then you have AU, which is gold, and then you have Thea, which is the study of God or the pursuit of God, to achieve gold. So at the beginning of author, it's AU gold. At the ending of author, it's OR gold. And between the two golden pillars
God in the physical.
is TH,
Breath of God in the
TH,
physical.
which is God. So
You're in. You are in.
Which is also the sun, because it's the greatest orb of them all. Keep going, Charlie.
it totally is. So again, you look at this and what Tolkien is powerfully saying to you: if I can do this, you can do this. So again, moving forward.
And we don't need any medical things because the elixir of life, we have it.
That's right.
You know,
So what Trump has been saying is that, and why this had to be a grassroots movement of the people rising up in the truth community, people like Colleen and I coming out of nowhere to play key roles in all of this, is to show you that this is all of us, this is any of us, and that you can do this too, and that moving forward, it doesn't matter what role you necessarily play to this point. Take a bigger role moving forward, because moving forward, we need these alchemical books. We need this alchemical music to continue. Rock and roll, which is roll the rock, has to become resurrected again. It never fell out of. See, this is the thing. When the music industry collapsed, the final strength of all of these divine bands that were putting God up against Satan, the battle collapsed in about 1983. It really did. Trust me, I know this inside and out. I was living it at the time. When you look at the top 20 albums in any month in 1980, 1981, 1982. These are the greatest albums and some of the most important, best albums that have ever been created. You look at the list. There were albums like Dire Straits' Making Movies, which is one of the greatest albums. I have it, I think, at like number 6 or 7 overall. It's that good of an album. It's that important of an album. All of the words. Mark Knopfler is just a brilliant, goodly, godly man. He is. He's a hell of a guitar player, one of the best ever. And Making Movies only got up to number 17. And I'm like, how is that even possible? And then you go back and you look, what were the albums that were ahead of Making Movies? And it's like, holy shit. And now we can't get one good artist. We can't get one good album. We can't get one good song anymore. What the hell's going on? It's not real. It's all fake. It's all artificial. And that's what you have to do. So if Colleen and I have helped you at all in any way, and we've brought hope back and strength back, and what, then pay us back by becoming these Gnostic bands, by becoming the new the new Alan Parsons Project, or the new Supertramp, or the new Dire Straits. Go and become these righteous ones that take your brilliance and your genius and then offer it all right back up to God. and
that's how I came across you two in the first place, because I stumbled across one of your books about music, and great. Really, really, really grateful for that.
So that's why and thank you so much, Sandra. And Sandra will be able to do all of this as well. She truly is gifted beyond description. And so is Aaron. And the book that Aaron is working on is a book that is going to really change the way that we see things. It's a very important book. It's just one of these go-to books moving forward. And then the vehicle for it is Tolkien's creation of Middle Earth, and it makes perfect sense. So when Aaron releases this book, he's writing about Q. He's writing about the Lord of the Rings. He's writing about
Us.
Narnia. He's writing about you, and he's writing
The Zodiac.
He's writing about astrology.
Pinocchio.
That's
Wizard
right.
of Oz.
Oh, and you have to read that book. Who's the author again? L. Frank.
The Wizard of Oz.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Yeah.
L.
I
Frank.
heard the name today as well. Oh yeah.
So
Oh.
it is an alchemical masterpiece. It's an alchemical masterpiece. And people go, that's just talking all about the Federal Reserve, the banking system. Yeah, that's one
Or-
part of it, but that's just
Or feminism. Just
Yeah.
one part.
just one
One
part.
part.
He tackled every single thing that they were doing. And what is he saying? It's just a little group of men hidden behind a curtain, and they're making you afraid. They're scaring you.
And look who it was that pulled the curtain back. It was God.
Toto. God. Total.
God. Yeah.
It's the totality. Yeah.
Yeah.
True hero.
And what's the first song that the rock band Toto ever released? What's the very first song from their first album? Hold the Line. Love doesn't always come or happen on time. Alchemical. And then Jeff Porcaro has this bizarre death. Jim Croce has this bizarre death. Buddy Holly has this bizarre death. They're being John Galton. They're being taken out. These are people that are saying, I would rather sacrifice my musical career because I want to do something. If there is a group that is fighting these demons, I want in. I want in. Stage my death. I want in.
Barrador in gematria is 414, which aligns with wealth. False flag. You know, these people couldn't be bought by that. They said no to Barrador. Ghost 414. This is
Well, and
loser.
that's all Jesus Christ, that's all Aragorn, that's all Sam were teaching, was this sovereignty, standing up for the truth no matter what. And we just learn these powerful lessons, and then we embody them. We step forward and say, I am a child of God. I am here, and nothing can sway that. Nothing can come in between me and my connection with God and my
Once you've
Creator.
made that decision, you will never ever step backwards. Never.
In my first tarot reading, the guy he was wide awake, and he said, if you could take the blue pill, would you go back and take it? And I almost stood up off the table, nearly knocking his cards everywhere, going, no. I think he was quite struck by that, but it showed in me like the conviction, because I'd not always been this passionate before finding, maybe I have, but it hadn't been highlighted to me, the conviction you can have when you really see into that littlest eye, and what's at stake,
Yeah, when you go down Alice in Wonderland, it's kind of hard to see the man behind the curtain, the Jewish Khazarian Bolshevik guy who's running all the Federal Reserve systems for the cabal, for the black nobility, for Sauron. It's kind of hard to unsee that, right? Yeah.
It is, but it's really, I think this kind of ties into the Norse understanding of creation as well, because you've got Loki, which is the dark, chaotic force in the world, and you've got Odin, his kind of polarity, the polarity of that. But then when you look a bit deeper into it, and I'm going to tie this in with the Wizard of Oz as well, when you look a bit deeper into it, Odin and Loki are actually blood brothers, which kind of means that they're actually the same person, but Odin disguises himself as Loki in order to create that chaotic force in the universe so that the hero can rise. Because if you don't have an adversary, you have no hero. And in the Wizard of Oz, if you notice, the Wizard of Oz, he actually teaches Dorothy that she can't rely on some external authority. She has to become the wizard herself. So although, yes, he is playing this kind of deceiver, he's actually encouraging her to take her own authority.
Yeah, if you even go back to the movie, they and by the way, again, that book, you need to get it. It's in my list as one of the 10 best, most important books ever created. You need to have. That's L. Frank Baum, and that's The Wizard of Oz, and it is a masterpiece in every sense of the word. But even in the movie, when Dorothy encounters the illusionist on the side of the road with his wagon and in one of the wheels in the ditch, he's even playing a role. So he's in this role as an illusionist, but he's playing in that role to teach Dorothy in that moment as well. So there's always the duality with that character, and it's the same thing when Toto 2020 Vision rolls back the curtain and reveals what's there. He's playing this role, but there is a dualistic aspect to him, which is truth. So he's giving very, very powerful truth, both in the physical and the metaphysical, in terms of how that plays out in her real world and then her dream world. The character is there in two places and playing a role, but both times giving powerful, powerful truth. That's how all of this works.
Same with Donald Trump, isn't it? He's like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I want to quickly say what I put in chat. Dorothy is thy door. Enter in, because that's where the prize is, and you'll see everything when you see within.
And the Doro thy is what you put in is what you get out.
Exactly.
And so in the beginning, when she didn't have the gnosis, that's what she was experiencing, the illusion. And then when she knew at the end, that's what she got, was the gold, the golden brick road.
El Dorado!
Back home.
Yeah. Dorothy was the oil in the lamp. She was the strength that gave the heart. She was the strength that gave the courage. She was the strength that gave all of her followers precisely what they needed. And that's because Dorothy went within herself and found that je ne sais quoi. Can't quite describe what it is, but that's something inside of us that has to awaken, has to rise, has to become strong within us, and that's the Kundalini. And that's why Dorothy is a female, and that's why her name is Dorothy, because that is door to the TH, which is seeking God, the door to God through Christ our Lord. Why? Because the cup is full. Why do we do anything? Because we want our cup to be full, not empty. You have to go from C to Y, and that's why virtually all the words in the English language, and there used to be tons of them that started with CY, they've been virtually all taken out. But Kaimatica hasn't, and this is this.
Cyan.
Yeah.
Cyclone.
And
cyanide.
which is
Cyclops.
a clone. Which is a clone of the single eye. And that's, remember, so the pineal gland, or the eye of Horus, or the eye in the sky, is Jesus Christ. Because it's the only way that you can rise up into heaven at the right-hand side of God. It's what the Bible teaches in the Old Testament. Just go to 1 Kings. 1 Kings, and just look at the building of Solomon's temple, which was done in silence, by the way. Done in silence.
Somewhere over the rainbow.
Somewhere over the rainbow, which is the pineal gland illuminated.
One of my favorite songs.
Yeah. And so this is why you see these stories. This is why we're doing our show, and Lord, we're talking about the Wizard of Oz, because it's the same story. It's why we've been talking about the Chronicles of Narnia. It's why we've been talking about Atlas Shrugged and the Fountainhead. It's the one story, so beautifully, beautifully told. So
didn't Aragorn touch on that, the white tree that unites all 7 colors, which is the rainbow? And in Spanish, they call it arco iris. It's the arc of the void. And then the iris, because the iris can see the visible light spectrum, which is the 7 that you see through the prism. So you could say your eye is that prism that's seeing that's seeing the magnetic white light coming in and interpreting that. So it's, I just want, and Snow White and the 7 dwarfs. I just wanted to bring that up.
Yep, Cyrus in the chat room, Cyrus, Cipher, all of these words are always unlocking the confusion. They're always the Rosetta Stone, which is this great code that then unlocks the secrets, and then everything comes into alignment and you can read it. So that's what the CY is. And what is the CY? It's the cup of Christ, which is the child, which is 3, which is us, looking, and it's empty, and it's looking to the east, longing for what it's lacking, which is God, because God came before. It's A, B, C. Why do you think the Great Sphinx exists outside of the Great Pyramid at Cheops in Egypt? And why do you think that the Sphinx is Leo the lion at the back and Virgo the mother at the front? Because you got a journey to go on before you get the tail of God and you become a lion, the lion king of the tribe of Judah in the east. So
it's also Leo at the back, and you can see it as Aquarius as the front, the opposite of Leo, so which is Christ. So the journey from personality, it's the lower aspects of Leo, to the upper aspects of man, which is Christ.
And that's the age we're in right now, because it's always access relationships. So we are in the age of Leo as well as Aquarius. And I also have to say, I forgot to say arco-iris, but also rainbow. Ra in bow, it's radiation in the bow. And then you can either read bow as bow, because you bow in penitence when you're at the lowest point, with Sagittarius, who has the keen bow. So it's just all.
You just muted yourself first.
Yeah, it's all coming in. I want to stop talking.
That's beautiful, Eugene. Thank you for sharing
and by
that.
the way, that's why the bow is shaped like the firmament. And this is the Ra in, the sun and the moon are not super far away. They're inside. Who taught us that? Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla. Read, I've taught you this for 5 years. What has Nikola Tesla said?
We're going to be hearing Nikola Tesla a lot in the future. So,
yeah.
You know what? This has been amazing. I'm thinking of Sandra and Aragorn, who are in the UK, and this is getting kind of late for you. And I want you to be able to come back for the next show, and it won't take you a week to recuperate.
But next time I'm going to fast for 2 days first, because that gives you energy, doesn't take it away.
Nice.
What I've done today. Yeah. I'm happy to keep going, but I'm well aware Sandra might want to go rest. So.
Yeah, I should have fasted as well. So
that's okay, because Charlie will keep going and going and going and going.
Especially about Tolkien.
Well, these could could be 9-hour shows.
That's right.
The single eyes.
yeah.
But I really wanted to just to drive that point home. That again, you know, even when you look at the sort of the negative stories that we hear, and so you're hearing a lot in the truth community that the ancient Egyptian religion is all very evil, and of course it's not. They've turned it that way, but again, you look at these characters. So Osiris and Isis and Horus are being demonized now because the Cabal have taken the Nimrod, Ishtar, Tammuz version, which is the dark side of the highness of this one story, and they perverted it. But if you look at Osiris, Os in Egyptian is open, Iris is eye. So Osiris is the open eye who sees all, because he created all, so that would be God. Isis is and that is the double sine wave, and it has to be her.
So is
the double sine
nine,
wave, because
Kundalini rising.
For sure, exactly. But that also is the torus field, and the torus field is an 8, and the scalar wave of magnetism, Mother Mary, is the shape of an 8.
So it's ISSI, the double S in between the two temples.
So it's the torus field between the two temples, and then this creates your aura, your auric field.
Golden globe.
And it comes to 56, so it literally is the temples, because 56 gets reduced down to 11.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's brilliant, beautiful. And then again, Horus is the Hor-I zone. So this is upon the level, which is Jesus Christ. So Hor-I zone is upon the level, and level means truth. So when you
the golden breath of God.
Yeah. So before you write, ancient Egyptian religion off as being evil, no. It's purely beautiful. It's the one story. It just got perverted along the way.
Well, the psychopathic mind hijacks everything because they can't create. So that's how you know that evil can't win anyway, simply because they cannot create. God creates, they can't create. They just hijack everything from everybody else and try to make it their own, and they'll always fail at that.
Yeah, they just consume. So eventually they just consume.
They just take
They're cannibals.
Parasites, right?
And
vampires.
Yeah. For both Sandra and Aaron, think about the brilliance of how Tolkien created his dragons. They're big thinkers.
Smaug.
They are clever, and they are linguists, and they are deep talkers and thinkers. Smaug, but I mean, you go back into the Silmarillion, it is dominated by Glowring, who's in the book that Sandra's going to read, The Children of Hurin. He plays such a huge role, of course, is this dragon. But look at the way Tolkien created these dragons. It's the left brain. It's your ego.
And there's nothing wrong with the dragons. You can love the dragons. They're beautiful in their own right. They really are, and they're so magical and powerful.
But you must reign supreme over the dragon, or it will devour you.
You have to overstand,
which is sovereignty.
Yes, yeah.
And don't listen to their slick talking and the what do they call it? I can't remember the word. The racketeering that the politicians do, because they'll bewitch you and promise you all the gold.
Once you know, and you stand up to them, you can run rings around them easily.
Or you become barrel rider. You become barrel rider, invisible. They can smell you, but they can't see you.
Invisible man.
Yep.
The invisible man, the one who will come later and bring the miracle.
We need N48 right here. What's Invisible Man? Come on, Eugene.
Oh, the gematria of Invisible Man. I got Frody in my arm, so I can't do it. But but yeah, this is huge stuff, and that's what Tolkien is saying, is that when you see, and again, who is the most opposite of the dragons in his creation of Middle Earth? It's the hobbits in the Shire, and the hobbits are not deep thinkers. And Peter Jackson beautifully plays upon this in the beginning of the movie, because they're not concerned about any worldly things. That look at my pumpkin. Look at the size of my pumpkin. Let's go have a beer. Let's go have an ale. And look at the size of this pumpkin.
Smoke old Toby.
Or let's smoke, and Toby. Pipeweed. And Tolkien purposely calls it pipeweed as well. And so the hobbits are just deeply ingrained in the moment which is the green levelness of the Shire. And dragons, they wouldn't have any appreciation for the Shire. They'd scorch it. What did Saruman is a dragon. So when Saruman escaped, when Treebeard let him go, and he had one more trick up his sleeves, where did Saruman go, and what did he do? That's the most, in my opinion.
This isn't in the movies.
That's right. But in my opinion, this is the most despicable thing of all. And Aaron, do you wanna take us through that? What Saruman in his last gasps of breath, what he chose to do?
He goes to the garden, to the purest place in Middle Earth, and perverts everything. He rips up the trees. He builds factories. Everyone has square homes. So within, that's symbolic for trapped within the material, rather than these beautiful hobbit holes with, it is, and that's where I think we are right now. Is the war is won, and we're unfortunately having to rouse the hobbits. Fair fire foes awake. That's where we are. The war's done. Barad-dûr's fallen, but we're now having to tend to the garden and clean up those smokestacks and the rest of it within ourselves as well.
So that's why I saved this for the last, and I asked Aaron to do that. Well, But it is. This is the whole point of the show. And I wanted Aaron to say that because do you not see, for those of you that have only watched the movies, then you don't know this. But for those of you that have read it, do you not see the Q plan playing out exactly like the book? Because what Aaron just said, and this is so profound, Barad-dûr has already fallen. The hobbits have come home and in victory from taking down of this great evil. But the hobbit people don't know this. They're still living under oppression by these fake leaders.
It's the movie playing out right now.
It's the movie playing out right.
Sharky, yeah. Matt Hancock is Sharky, you know. Bill Gates is Sharky. It's all just delusions. Mere tricksters and conjurers. Their staff has been broken.
Yep.
The parallels are incredible.
It is. And Merry and Pippin, what do they stand for? They stand for righteousness for sure, but they give hope. You see, you need to be a warrior of hope for God, not this despair. And so the people that rail against Colleen and I, that's why we always say it just shows you as Satanists because how do you think by like Colleen and I said, there has to be a group of people that are helping us because this is sick. This is evil beyond description. There have to be people in high places that are going, wait a minute, I don't mind necessarily having money and being rich, but I'm not into this. Children are the main cash crop and we eat them. I mean, you lost me at that point. There has to be a group of people that said this. And it just turns out that it happened to be in the military. The military stayed loyal to us. The police forces
most of
didn't.
The military.
Yeah.
Not all, but most.
It's one of the the laws of the universe. So you've got correspondence, as above, so below. You've got rhythm, everything has a swing, but then you've got polarity. So as many people as are trying to enslave us, there are equal, if not more, trying to liberate us. And that's what, the doomsayers and the rest of them can't see. They can't see that light because they've been so worm-tongued by the dark.
They can't see that coronavirus is the crown virus, that we're finding our crowns. We're finding the fact that we're king and we're knowing and we're asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And really quickly here, I want to also tie this in. How did Tolkien describe, because when the hobbits came back after defeating this evil, but they were still, the hobbits, the Shire was living the movie. So when they came back, there was rules and Sharky and the Sharky's men, and there were rules, square buildings, ugliness, brick, no window, just terrible.
Our society's cities.
That's us, right? Smoke, pollution everywhere, all the greenery cut down. And then what did Tolkien describe the system that they created? Collectors who went around gathering for sharing. And what did one old gaffer say? He said, well, I see plenty of gathering. I don't see any sharing. And that's
Bolsheviks.
Communism. And so Tolkien showing you this is Bolshevism and that these are the demons. And
Bullshitism.
It would not have been long before these chief's men were then partaking in the blood and the flesh of the Hobbit children. It would not have been long at all before that happened.
And that's the part that I really rail against, these people who say, come on already. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. Because if we go too fast and we lose too many people, you don't get that the majority of these people will fall back into the same ways because they haven't done the work and they haven't learned their lesson and they haven't seen the truth. So they will be back to those 10% ways of eating children within a very short time. And they think that it's something out there, but it's something in here that we must master. Okay,
and brilliant. That really kind of brings us home today, and it's perfect ending because what Colleen just described is the movie now. And it's been hard for Colleen and I to kind of say this, so we haven't said it that often, but a year has been taken out of our life. If the Jesus strand is revealed 11/2, and then the big Q drop date is 11/3, and then the day of action is 11/4, they stole they stole the election. They took the world's president away from all of us. This one man who was literally running and protecting every nation on earth. We had 4 years of honesty, promises made, promises kept for 4 years. We had the glory, and then they stole it. And now we have all been asked in the year 2021, 2 + 2 + 1 is 5. 5 is the crucifixion. We have all been asked to go through the crucifixion in the year 2021. Yep.
How many months did it take the hobbits to complete their quest?
Exactly 12 months. And you think JFK Jr. is not aware of any of this stuff? It's the one story. You know that this is so heavily based on Atlas Shrugged and the Lord of the Rings. You know it absolutely is. And Hobbits, 12 months to the day that cycle. And then who is
cycle CY?
That's good. Cycle CY.
Cycle CY. Cycle CY. Christ. Who is coming? Who is coming? And then to make sense out of, order out of chaos. Remember, if you guys haven't watched the video that Colleen and I did with Eugene and Justin on the real Freemasons and the real Knights Templar and who are the Gnostics and the Essenes, you need to watch that video. The actual Freemason plan for the world, which is because these Freemasons go all the way back to Atlantis. They're the Atlanteans. So this is this Christic seed. That's why they swore to protect Mary Magdalene and the seed that Mary carried out of the Holy Land when she was chased out by these bankers. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And so this is what you see playing out today, that through all of this, that there is a greater miracle still coming. Because the greater miracle still to come is the unifier. And that's what Aragorn LSR is. He's the unifier of 2 kingdoms into 1, 2 worlds into 1. And that's what Aragorn represents, which was beautifully decoded by Aaron earlier in the show. And this is what's coming to us. And the thing is, when I heard this, I was like waiting for this to happen, waiting for something like this to occur, because it has to. There has to be a silver lining. And everywhere Mary went, that lamb was sure to go. Because Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Right. And you see, Mary's little lamb is Jesus Christ. Colleen doesn't know how to use her phone.
I don't know how to.
She doesn't even know how to use a phone.
I'm sorry.
So
no, it was perfect because you set the silver cord and the bell rang.
There you go, silver. Yeah.
and the silver cord, leads directly within you to this. This is how intuition works. You know how they say it's a gut feeling? Well, there's a silver cord that runs from that solar plexus chakra, the place of the sun, to the illuminated sun up and to the right, which is your pineal gland. And then that's how you know. People rub you the wrong way. I should have listened to my intuition, but I didn't. I should have listened to my gut feeling. You're taught not to. That's why you don't, because you're taught not to. And everything that's happening in the world today, like eating these animals, is just bad habits. But we're creatures of habit, and habits are hard to break. You're a hard habit to break. There's that alchemical song by the band Chicago. Chicago didn't write about boyfriends and girlfriends. Every single song they wrote about
so many levels.
Are these alchemical. So she is a hard habit to break. That's the moon goddess Sin that gives us pleasure and pain by ruling over us, our emotions. Or this is the risen Mother Mary, pure, virtuous virgin within us that rises. It's your choice. It's always your choice. But there's a higher form and a lower form to absolutely everything.
I want to point out that Eugene is wearing clothes. This is how he appears in the videos. Oh, he's wearing shorts. He's got clothes on. He's not naked. Sorry. Go ahead.
And every day here in Mexico, where we live, anyways, every day it's 100 degrees, so it's hot.
I miss the warmth already.
We're in air conditioning and he doesn't have any.
Freezing here.
Let's tie this up today, and what we're going to do is we're going to go around the table, we white hats of the round table of Middle Earth, and I want your feelings and emotions on, you know, what the show meant to you today, and just some closing thoughts, because all I can think of right now is next week's show, and I'd like thematically for us to we're going to sort of start thematically. We're going to get to the Hobbit. We're going to start with the Hobbit because that's how you should read all of this. But we're going to start in the Shire. We're going to start with Bilbo, Bag End, the Shire, Hobbiton, what it all means, and then we're going to go on this journey. So this series is going to be a journey starting from this sacred motherly plane.
So it'll be there and back again.
So we'll go there and back again as we journey. But
the hero's journey.
But anyone in order, but Justin and Sandra and Aaron, please chime in and just let's have your closing thoughts and what this sort of means to all of us, I guess.
Yeah, well, this is our story, you know, and I'm excited to break it down, and in this series and in everything that we do, we just continue to show more and more links back to this one singular place, which is God, which is home, which is where we're going to. And so what an incredibly vibrant experience that we get to have these multiple journeys back to the same place. We get to find any particular route, any particular flavor, but it all goes back to the same path. So you've got all of these alchemical geniuses who wrote these stories, but they knew that it was all directing towards that same truth, the one truth, not anyone's particular truth. No one owns the truth. It is the truth. And so we get to continue to discover that as we uncover this story in particular, but really any and all stories as we mentioned. So I'm just honored to be here. Truly honored to be here to continue aiding and showing people, leading people back to God. You know, rediscovering God myself, and having other people join me along the way. It's such a beautiful experience. So yeah, I'm truly honored, and yeah, thank you all so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for me as well. I'm really honoured. I won't say I wish I'd done it before, because I think once it's gone, it's gone. You can't say I wish this, I wish that. Just going forward. No, there are no coincidences. Seek and ye shall find. That's all I'll say. But thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you as well, guys. Truly honoured to be here. I've just said in the chat, pinching myself. Isn't it funny how the ego has all these grand designs for your life, but then as soon as you come out of that and you just let the universe guide you, what it gives you is just better than you could ever imagine, and that's what this is. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity and inviting me here, for all the work that you guys do. Can I read a quick quote from Tolkien?
Thank you for the fellowship.
Yeah, exactly. What a fellowship. We are the fellowship. But there's a Tolkien quote that I love that I think sums everything up that we're fighting for. So it's from the Two Towers, and he said, "War must be while we defend our lives against a destroyer who would devour all. As I do not love the bright sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love only that which they defend." And that to me, that's it. Boom, mic drop. Sums it all up.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you.
And remember, everyone, Tolkien did not glorify Aragorn as the greatest warrior fighter ever. He glorified Aragorn as a tireless, kind man who gave service to others. So Aragorn, you just need to remember, just to be able to get to the Pelennor Fields, Aragorn, once again, he did 3 days, 3 nights with Gimli and Legolas to be able to get, like a miracle, to Rohan in time to be able to stop the evil plans of Saruman. And so for 3 days, 3 nights, there's no rest, there's no food, nothing. They just kept running. And then after the defeat, Aragorn gets one night of sleep, but very little because he spent much of it on the Palantir, and the Palantir, to wrest the control away from it with Saruman, took most of his energy and strength to be able to do so. And then he became clear what he needed to do, and then he went off at like a lightning bolt, and he went on a journey that is nothing short of stunning, where he raised the dead and defeated the pirates of the high seas. For 3 days and 3 nights, they rowed and rowed. No food, no rest, nothing again. And then they had to go into great battle against these pirates to defeat them. And then they rested only for the rest of that night upon the ships, because they needed to leave first thing in the morning upon the ships. And then up the rivers they went. They went for a little over an entire day to arrive just in time to fight a day-long battle at the Pelennor Fields and make the entire difference to the world. And then when it was all over, with all the wounded and all of those suffering from the Black Breath, from the Nazgul, the ring race, who've lost their souls, what did Aragorn do? He worked through the night and through the entire next day, healing, because the hands of the true king are the hands of the healer. That's what Professor Tolkien wrote. That's what Aragorn stood for. And if that's not a better representation of Jesus Christ, then I don't know one. I don't know one. There's no better perfect way to describe Jesus. And this New Age spiritualism gives you Christ as this sort of meek, mild pushover, and everyone's got their own truth and it's all good. Nope. He was a warrior. He was a warrior. And you don't think it took strength for him to do what he did, to allow them to do what they did, so that we would get the message? And we're not getting the message, because he didn't die so you could remain a sinner. He showed you. William Wallace showed you. Abraham Lincoln showed you. John Kennedy showed you. President Trump is showing you that you have to become a warrior for God. That's who Jesus Christ was. Not this bullshit New Age spiritualist thing that they try to push on you. Jesus was strength beyond imagination. He was kindness beyond imagination. And he was healing beyond imagination. That's Jesus Christ. And that's the story that we have been teaching. And we get it from both sides, because, you know, we celebrate God, but we celebrate the truth about God. We celebrate Jesus Christ, but we celebrate the truth about Jesus Christ. And all the literalist Christians don't like us for it, because it's distorting what they have been told. But you have been told the story of Jesus Christ by men who are the two towers, who wear penises everywhere, who put penises everywhere and have defiled this earth. But as Negative 48 said the other night on the show that we had, for as much as they've defiled the mother and this earth, they have mined the human mind more than anything else. And you need to know that. You are a victim of your own mind, because they know you better than you know you. And they have used it as a weapon. World War III is real. It started moments after World War II ended, and it was a battle fought in your mind.
And this is the final battle. So that's the really great news. And they can only program you if you're in your beta zone and your left brain. So you get in your right brain and they have no power over you, and you say, go.
You have no power here.
It's wow, right? So was that your final? Okay.
Sorry to steal that from you, Charlie. I know you like doing that.
But Glinda said that, didn't she, the good witch? You have no power here.
And in Labyrinth, she says, you have no power over me, to the Goblin King.
Yeah, and just to add on a quick little note on the channel. So this was hosted on my channel tonight. So if you're watching and wandering toward truth, remember that it's going to be taking place on Charlie and Colleen's new channel, which a link to that is found in the show notes and pinned to the top. So that's where you'll find future episodes of this lovely discussion, and then a whole host of other things from Charlie and Colleen, because the YouTube demons are at it again. But we're just going to keep bringing it to this platform as long as it exists, because we know their time is limited. So just make sure to subscribe to that channel so that you keep up to date to it.
Eugene, your turn.
Oh yeah, I thought I had to leave before, but turns out I don't need to take Lulu home. So I'll say this. We were talking about Dorothy, and Dor, you know, again, it's El Dorado, and D being the form, the fourfold nature. And this is the cross, this is the elements, and this is Jesus. And this whole journey is about becoming the king and the priest, because Cancer to Capricorn is the king's, what do you call it, solstitial line. And then Aries to Libra is the priest's, what do you call it, horizontal equator.
Warrior and magician.
Exactly. And what that's Jesus.
Warrior and lover, sorry. Warrior and lover.
Exactly. And that is Jesus. He's the one who's out there fighting, but he's also loving. And like Charlie was saying, the lightning bolt of Zeus. And that's the only story ever told, which is so well, you know, outlined in Lord of the Rings, which is Son of Man. In the soul of man, Solomon's temple, you got to raise it to be it. So yeah, that's it.
Beautiful. And I just want to say, I am so honored to be here doing this with you guys, and all of you in the chat. Like, this is a dream come true for me. This is to me, this is the best that was yet to come. This is so beautiful. And it's just the tip of the iceberg. And this little guy, I don't know what he wants, but
he also goes to the Undying Lands.
He does, actually. He's just hit his sexual peak, I think, and he's just gone a little cuckoo. But thank you all so much again. I can't wait for the next one, and who knows what this week will bring. There's so many things coming behind the scenes, and we don't know any of the timelines. We're all just kind of all sitting there waiting, continuing to do the work, but you know, and just sending out love and light to everyone who's in the despair mode. The best is yet to come. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you. So just hang in there, do your best, shine your light, and we'll get through this together. We absolutely will. We
sure will. And for those that dropped in partway through, again, this what you're watching today is episode 1 of an ongoing, hopefully never will end, series which is entitled The White Knights of Middle Earth, and it's a weekly roundtable discussion. This will be every Thursday afternoon for us at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is 7 p.m. UK time. It's tough for Debbie and our Aussie friends, because that's 4 a.m. for most of Australia.
We're so sorry.
When we start, at least in Wellington in New Zealand, it's 6 a.m. But Debbie Scully was here for the entire show. Debbie said there was sunlight at 4:54 a.m. The sun just came through at 4:54, which is 13. The sun rises is Jesus Christ. That's 13, 4:54. So that's what you're doing. And then just really quickly, last night we had another video taken down off our channel for cyberbullying. Wow, sorry about that. I didn't realize I was doing it. And so that's 2 strikes. And what they said is that we're now going to do a review of your channel and remove any other material, and that could lead to the removal of your channel. So as soon as we got up this morning, Colleen quickly made a new channel, and the name of this new channel is Freak Sense Truth-O-Vision. That's the YouTube channel, and Freak is spelled F-R-E-Q-K S-E-N-S-E, Freak Sense Truth-O-Vision, and Truth-O-Vision is T-R-U-T-H-A-V-I-S-I-O-N. So Freak Sense Truth-O-Vision is the new channel, and I will expedite myself moving all of the material as quick as I can off of the Shire Animal Rescue Sanctuary YouTube channel, and move it over. And this will be our 3rd one, because you know our first platform they took down as well. So we're fighting the demons. We're fighting the good fight. We're on the right hand side of all of this, and that's why we're together, because all of you have positioned yourself on the right hand side, and that's where you need to be. So I applaud all of you. We love all of you, and it really is just an absolute dream to have this group, and every week to be talking about Professor Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and their creations, because again, I cannot stress enough, this is a genius beyond your imagination. And like the Bible, it's a gift that keeps on giving. You'll never grow tired of these books. There's always more to learn, because this is the highest of highs. This is the holiest of holies.
It plants beautiful seeds inside of you, right? I mean, we can all attest to that, how it creates inspiration inside of us, and it blossoms and it flowers. And then lore, legend, and magic is alive again. So
thank you. Everyone, you guys were amazing. Justin, thank you for hosting this. You did such a great job, my friend. Eugene, and of course, Sandra and Aaron, you guys are amazing. You're family, and we're blessed to have such a beautiful family.
I've thought that for several years now, anyway. So.
All right. Love you guys so much.
I love your enthusiasm. Eugene, he's so great, isn't he? Oh.
All right, love you guys. We'll see y'all for the next one.
Bye.
Yes. Bye bye. Take care.